Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Where's my agenda? Good evening. Welcome, everyone, to our Tuesday, September 8th, Sioux Falls City Council meeting. Thanks for joining us in person, or those of you who are joining us online, thank you for doing that. We will go ahead and get started tonight by reading our roll, please, Tom.
Council members Neitzer.
Here.
Selberg. Here. Sale. Starr.
Here.
Recke.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Jensen. Here. Kiley.
Here.
All right, here to give our invocation tonight, we have Dr. Ron Tottingham is back with us. Dr. Tottingham, thanks for being here, sir. He is a regular, and we always appreciate your invocations here. So I would ask that you rise for that invocation, and then stay standing for our Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I usually take just a second or two for personal privilege here, and I want to tell you, again, I just got back from 13 states, the East Coast, and 3 military bases as a retired military officer. And I'm more proud of Sioux Falls tonight than I was before I left. And you guys are the ones that make it that way. So, and there's a reason why I say that. So I want to thank you before I pray that you're able to do it even better. So thank you. Our Father, tonight, thank you for your blessings. Thank you for your blessings on this city. Thank you for these people who, though they get paid, there's still a lot of things involved, and certainly lately a lot of things on their plate that they didn't really know was coming. And their reaction to that has been admirable, in my opinion, and also with our mayor. And I pray that you'd continue to put your help and blessings on them and with them and walk with them and help them do the things they need to do, that this might be a city that in every way would honor you and allow people to honor you that live in this city. Bless us tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd ask Councilor Kiley to join me up front, please.
Tony, if you would come forward now, please. And Buck, if you would come up as well, too. I'm going to invite Buck Underwood up. It is my pleasure this evening to present the Superhero Award to Tony Sutter. Tony is a 6-year U.S. Army veteran who took immediate action to remove graffiti from a sign honoring those awarded the Purple Heart. The purpose of the Purple Heart Trail is to create a symbolic and honorary system of roads, highways, bridges, and other monuments that give tribute to the men and women who have been awarded the Purple Heart Medal. These signs serve as visual reminders of the sacrifices U.S. men and women have made on behalf of their country. According to Coffee or Die magazine, Tony was quoted as saying, "If I could prevent somebody from having that heartache or that feeling of disrespect from seeing that sign vandalized, if I could prevent that from at least one veteran or one person in general, maybe a family member of a veteran who's been wounded, I'd say that's a job well done." Tony has an extensive background with mechanics and painting, so removing the paint from the sign was not a problem. He grabbed a ladder, the right chemicals, and began removing the paint from the sign on South Veterans Parkway. Today, that sign and other Purple Heart signs stand as a reminder of those who sacrificed for this country, free of any blemishes, thanks to the work of Tony Sutter. It is by his honorable sacrifice and continued dedication to the memory and honor of our veterans that this City Council and Mayor Paul TenAkin honor and recognize Tony as a superhero. Thank you for your service. You are an example that all of us should follow and a welcome member to this community. And now I invite Buck to make a presentation of his own.
I'd like to present to you a Purple Heart supporter pin and a challenge coin also. Our chapter, just can't say enough. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Mayor, Tony, would you like to say a few words?
I wasn't expecting this. I guess the only thing I have to say is I'd like to thank those men and women who have been wounded in combat, or family members of military members that have been wounded in combat, and thank you for their sacrifice. As a veteran, I mean, we are a family all the way till the end. So we're there for each other all the way until the end.
Well, it's always special when we have a Purple Heart recipient with us as well. So, Buck, thank you for your service. Just before this, I was at the DAV. They actually had Nick's Hamburgers in town, and we were having some hamburgers, and I was talking with the folks at the DAV, and, you know, it's always something that I reflect on, that, you know, freedom isn't passed down in, you know, our bloodstream, or, you know, we have to fight for it every generation. It takes people like Tony, people like Buck, people like the men and women at the DAV to ensure that that happens. And so while this may seem like a small act, it sends a very, very large message to how our community respects and admires our veteran community. So Tony, thanks for that. Buck, thanks for your service. We appreciate you both.
Well done.
All right. Thanks, Tony and Buck and your families for being here. You always have to make sure you know you are welcome to leave if you don't want to stay for the whole 3-hour city council meeting. So thank you, guys. So I know there's some people in the overflow too, so there's a few chairs that have opened up if you want to come sit inside. So we will move on to item 5, which is our consent agenda. Look for any changes or motions there.
Move to approve.
Second, Erickson.
All right, motion by Kylie, seconded by Erickson on that. Any discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote on that, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg. Yes. Starr. Yes. Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen. Yes. Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. We'll move to item 12, which is our regular agenda. Look for a motion to approve that.
Move to approve.
Second, Erickson.
All right, motion by Kylie and seconded by Erickson.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Kylie.
motion to amend the regular agenda by moving item 27 immediately after item 17.
Second, Erickson.
All right, motion by Kylie, seconded by Erickson. All that on that. Any discussion on that move, council? All right, we'll take a vote on that, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg. Yes. Starr. Yes. Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen. Yes. Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes. So we're at the main motion as amended. Any other changes there? All right, then we'll take a vote on that, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg. Yes. Starr. Yes. Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen. Yes. Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. We're at the general public input portion of our agenda tonight. As a reminder, input during this portion will last no more than 3 minutes per person, and in total last no more than 30 minutes. During general public input, the public is welcome to speak on any topic that does not appear later on the agenda. For regular agenda items following general public input, comments are limited to 3 minutes unless the item is being presented for final adoption, in which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. For all regular agenda items, comments are limited to the agenda item under consideration at the time only. So at this time, I'd like to invite any members of the public forward for our general public input time. It's 7:10. Good evening.
Hi, good afternoon, or good evening, rather. William Anderson, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Sioux Falls Tenants' Rights Union. As I'm sure all of you know, 6 days ago, the CDC and the Department of Health and Human Services issued a sweeping and unprecedented order for an eviction moratorium through the end of the year. This moratorium applies in all 50 states, and certainly here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, it echoes almost verbatim our call from April and May for a similar measure, one which does not absolve tenants from their responsibilities, but a sensible measure that gives people in a dire situation time to make arrangements. There are still roughly 10,000 unemployed people in our town, and if you thought the national mood was tense before, imagine how it must feel to live in a household that was recently robbed of an additional $2,400 per month, but rent is still due on the 1st. With that in mind, I want to issue my heartfelt thanks, my most heartfelt thanks again to Councilors Brecky, Starr, and even though she isn't here, to Teresa Staley for having the courage, the wisdom, the foresight, and the decency to stand for what was and continues to be the just, moral, and reasonable thing to do at this time. Thank you for having the moral backbone to stand for what was right and just and continues to be backed by respectable science in spite of a litany of landlords begging you to do otherwise. Thank you for not allowing campaign contributions from large developers to cloud your judgment. Thank you for not depriving this community of scarcely available affordable housing for personal profit. Thank you for not misquoting and cherry-picking South Dakota codified law in an attempt to embarrass and discredit a concerned citizen. I hope everyone watching at home is paying attention and knows and understands that there are at least 2 members of this council that have good hearts in their chests and reasonable heads on their shoulders. I left our last conversation utterly disappointed. I expected better from public servants. The way some of you hissed and shrieked over a non-binding resolution that merely suggested that those in a position of power and authority do the right thing was absolutely saddening and shameful. But given your response, I don't know why I expected otherwise. 5 of you had the opportunity to do what was right, and you failed. Councilors Starr and Brecky, and even though she's not here again, Staley, I hope you feel vindicated in your vote. What is right and just has prevailed in the end. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else this evening? Please come forward. Come on up, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Words are important, and if I were...
State your name, Bob.
If I were...
Can you state your name, Bob?
If I were trying to win friends and influence people, I wouldn't
Bob
be
Colby,
here.
for the record. Thank you, Bob.
If I were trying to influence people, I wouldn't be here in public. I would be in a private and offering money. Words are important. We have been walking upright for somewhere this side of 1,000,000 years. Humans have been creating words in 1,000 languages to express all of the experiences of those things we have seen, heard, felt, and done. Here are some words that I've learned that are valuable. In marriage, success is 2 magic words followed by 3 magic words. Yes, dear. Anything else, dear. Politics has 2 sets of words that never get said. I was wrong, you were right. Politics, words for success. Okay, I'm listening. Let's see what we can do. Generally, words used are I'm right, I'm in charge. Words that are not spoken out loud, but only to oneself. I'll do it just this once. No one will ever know. A book recently reissued for its 2nd set of 2 million copies, Gifts of Imperfection, by Brene, I think is the proper name, Brene Brown. And I'm paraphrasing what she said as it might apply to politics in general. We elected you to do what's correct, not because you are right. And I think I changed that just slightly because I used right twice, and sometimes that implies a little too much politics. That's all I have to say. Words are important. Use them carefully. They have meaning in spite of the way things are going in our political system these days.
All right, thank you. Good evening.
Greetings. I'm David Zokaitis, and can we get some PowerPoint working over here?
It's on at home.
It's on the counselors could see it on their item and perhaps on the side. We'll check.
We got it. Go ahead.
I have to do it the hard way. All right. So I'm David Zokaitis, and hopefully I can get my 40 seconds back. But I'm here to talk to you tonight about civil asset forfeiture. The basic idea is that drug dealers should lose all their money, and the government should get it, and thereby increase drug interdiction problems. All right, the South Dakota Attorney General says that any property a drug dealer has can be taken. You don't need to be guilty. I think that's quite the problem. Go ahead. And what's worse is that if the government just pretends that maybe you will use this for drugs, then take your stuff. That's the law. I've got a citation over there to show that. It's big business. Government takes more from you than criminals do. And if you lose your stuff, you can't get it back. There's a reference there from South Dakota Legislative Research Council. They check into this kind of stuff for South Dakota government, and they say, hey, once it's gone, forget it. In South Carolina, it's used to promote racism. Not a good idea. In Pennsylvania, they used it to hurt poor people. And civil asset forfeiture is definitely a civil rights disaster. It violates all manner of constitutional protections, and it's so bad that I think you could even describe it as armed robbery. If people take your stuff with guns and you can't ever get it back, you don't need to be guilty, I think that qualifies as armed robbery, even if it's done in the name of the war on drugs. I've got some recommendations, as is normal. One of those is that we correct drug prohibition because it's a horrible disaster. We should repeal civil asset forfeiture, and criminal asset forfeiture might be okay, but civil is definitely no good. We should find honest politicians, and as always, we should try to enjoy the natural world and be nice to each other. All right.
Thank you. Good evening.
Tim Stangen. I got home about 1:30 in the morning on Sunday, let my dog out, and I was watching 3 people walking down my sidewalk. So I kept watching them, and they went down the alleyway. I followed them. They started going through my neighbors' cars on Sunday. I went down and I told them, I said, are these your vehicles or are they somebody else's? They all looked at me and started running. Well, I called the police officers. I just want to warn the citizens of Whittier that there are 3 people. They're between 14 and 18 years old. One has a backpack, and all 3 of them wear hoodies. I've heard for the last 2 weeks that they have been going through cars. Well, I seen it. I did call the police. But the police officer wasn't very friendly. It didn't amaze me, but it's not the first time I've turned things in on the house that they were burglarizing. She knew who I was. the other thing is, I've been working with Matt Tobias on cleaning up the neighborhood. Matt's been a great person to work with. He is a person that is well worth his money with the city. He goes over and above on what he does and what he can do. But when he told me the health department came through 2 weeks before our drive-through the Whittier neighborhood, they came out with 48 violations. Sad part about it is, he looks at one violation, and there's one violation that was 2 feet from him, but yet didn't even write it down. What's the use of going around the neighborhood and try to clean up a neighborhood when you can't even write something down on a piece of paper? Or maybe what you should do is get every department that should be out there going around the neighborhood. Maybe you tell them, hey, I'm going to be going around the neighborhood. Why don't you join me and let's get it cleaned up? I asked the gentleman from the health department about one house. Oh, that's not my job. You got to contact another part of the city to be able to get that taken care of. Are you kidding me? That guy was there at that property. Why couldn't he have taken care of it? Just a lot of wasted time and a wasted money. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else here this evening for public input? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Our next item, please.
Next item, item 14, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the First Amendment to option to purchase real estate from the city.
Good evening, Dustin.
Evening, Council. Dustin Powers with Planning and Development Services. Tonight, we have 3 items. 14, 15, and 16 are related to the city's agreements with Rail Yard Flats LLC as well as Sharapa 2 LLC, both managed by Jeff Scherschlicht here of Sioux Falls. Item 30, or excuse me, the items are incorrect, but it's item 14 tonight would be the second reading of the option to purchase amendment. Basically what this amendment does is it amends the expiration date of the option. The option agreement is in reference to the orange area outlined on the screen. And what we would be doing with this amendment would be extending the option expiration from December 31st of 2021 to December 31st of 2022. So with that, I'd be able to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thanks, Dustin. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item? All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Dustin on this one? Okay, look for a motion, please.
Move to
approve.
Second.
Move to approve Kylie, seconded by Jensen. Any discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote, please.
Council members Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg. Starr.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item.
Item 15, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving First Amendment to Development Agreement.
Item 15 is related to the development agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and Rail Yard Flats LLC. There are 3 major amendments that occur that we have in front of you with the second reading of the ordinance tonight. First is a consent to transfer a portion of the property for Rail Yard Flats. Second is to modify the terms of the bike path improvements, and the third is to outlines the timeline for the 8th streetscape improvements. On the screen, you can see an area outlined in red. The Rail Yard Flats development is on the right-hand side or the east side, and then to the west is the East Bank Depot building on East 8th Street, which is owned by Howe Investment Company. The consent to transfer would allow them to modify the property line on the east or west side of Rail Yard Flats development to reflect the shared courtyard that's going to be in between both properties. Again, the 2 companies have negotiated what those terms would look like in terms of completing the courtyard as outlined in the development agreement, and this would just better reflect the ownership of the courtyard moving forward. The second item in the amendment is related to the bike trail improvements. As you can see along the east side of East Rail Yard Flats, as well as the east side of the option property is shown on the right side of the screen. Ultimately, what the original development agreement discussed was that the city would do the grass and berming to coincide with the Rail Yard Flats development and then come back and do the bike trail extension at the time that Sharapa 2 was going to be completed to the north. Jeff approached us about expediting that timeline, and with that offer, he volunteered to do all of the prep work for the bike trail. So that included the berming, the landscaping, the irrigation, all the trees and everything that you see on the screen between 6th and 8th Street. He would be taking the responsibility to do that, and then the city would have our street crew come and pave the trail once that's completed. So that's what's being reflected in the development agreement amendment. And then the third item is related to the streetscape improvements that are along 8th Street in front of Rail Yard Flats. The original agreement didn't discuss the timeline for which those streetscape improvements would be done. Jeff requested that those improvements be done to coincide with completion of Rail Yard Flats so that construction wouldn't occur after they were open. So it does outline that those improvements would be happening next spring. And those are the three main amendments to the development agreement.
All right, thank you, Dustin. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item tonight? Councilors, got questions for Dustin on this one? All right, look for a motion, please.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Kiley and seconded by Selberg to approve this item. Any discussion on it, council? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg, Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Next item, please.
Item 16, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, declaring certain real property of the city surplus and approving the offer to purchase and development agreement.
Item 16 is a new purchase agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and Rail Yard Flats LLC. What this is during construction and through the completion of the design plans and construction, it was requested that an additional piece of property be sold, or two small chunks of property be sold to Jeff and his team. What this is for is they had some additional space needed to accommodate some lighting for their parking area, as well as the lighting will help facilitate some lighting on the bike trail as well. So this purchase agreement is consistent with the original purchase agreement. All the terms are the same. We're just selling the additional 18 square feet for $10 a square foot with this agreement.
All right, thank you, Dustin. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this one? Councilors, questions for Dustin on it? Look for a motion, please.
Move approval. Second.
Motion by Selberg, seconded by Jensen, to approve item 16 here. Any discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 17.
Item 17, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the city authorizing the issuance of its sales tax revenue bonds, the Series 2020 bonds, authorizing the use of the proceeds thereof, together with any other available funds, to one, design, construct, equip, and/or furnish a new public safety training and Metro 911 PSAP facility, and subject to availability of funds, pay the cost of demolition of the old fire training site and police gun range located at 3401 Northwestern Avenue. Two, refund all or a portion of one or more of the outstanding City of Sioux Falls A sales tax revenue bonds, Series 2009A, B sales tax revenue bonds, Series 2009B-1, and C taxable sales tax revenue bonds, recovery zone economic development bonds, Series 2009B-2, and 3, pay the cost of issuance thereof, pledging a portion of the sales and use tax proceeds of the city to the payment of the said Series 2020 bonds, fixing the term of such Series 2020 bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of one or more supplemental indentures to the amended and restated indenture of trust entered into by the city to secure sales tax bonds, authorizing the sale, execution, and delivery of such Series 2020 bonds in an amount sufficient to, one, fund a deposit of bond proceeds in an amount not to exceed $50 million to construction fund to finance such project, two, fund deposits to the applicable redemption accounts to redeem any such refunded bonds, three, pay costs of issuance of such Series 2020 bonds, and four, fund capitalized interest, if any, and a debt service reserve fund, and amending certain covenants in the amended and restated indenture with respect to additional bonds and establishing a common debt service reserve for additional.
All right, thank you, Tom. Sean, good evening.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Sean Pritchard, Director of Finance. As the title denotes, and as we've had presentations over the last several weeks, months, and frankly years, this is a culmination of a lot of work. But the request before you is the bonding for the public safety training facility and the public safety answering point to be located in Northwest Sioux Falls. Is for $50 million, but also includes the cost of the issuance, any capitalized interest, as well as the opportunity and authorization to refund the three various bonds that have been identified in the title. I believe there would be one minor cleanup item, and would request a motion to amend the title to add the word bonds to the end of it. And if we're so inclined, probably have Tom read it again. That was a joke.
Thank you.
But with that, this is a vehicle for an important project that this community has worked with for a long time. There's been a lot of agencies or departments that have been involved with it. Many of you as counselors have been very actively involved in bringing this forward. And so it is a vehicle for bringing forward a very important project to our community. I'm going to ask Chief Goodroad if he would come in and just say a few words. He's kind of spearheaded this project for several years to bring it to this point, and I will stand by and answer any questions you have in regard to the bonding request.
Evening, Chief.
Thank you, Sean. Well, good evening, councilors, Mayor, Fire Chief Brad Goodroad here. Just had a few comments kind of on behalf of Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, Sioux Falls PD, and Metro Communications. Just really want to thank you, for the support of this project over the years and the last few months, certainly. Thank you for taking the time first, really to understand the need. You all really understand what we're looking at, what we're dealing with, and I really appreciate that. Also, thank you for taking the time to visit the current location, having our communication meetings. We've had a lot of those, and just really appreciate that. And then certainly most recently, your support to add Metro Communications to this project. Incredibly important for this community and for our fire and police agencies to have a successful agency there, so really appreciate that. And again, we appreciate your overall support for public safety over the years. Hope to see that support continue tonight as we move forward with this much needed project. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, we'll move into any public input on this item tonight. Is anyone here to speak on this topic? All right, counselors, you have any questions for, I know Chief Burns is here, obviously, Chief Goodroad, Sean, on this item. All right, hearing none, I'd love to hear a motion.
Move to approve. Ricky. Second, Erickson.
All right, motion by Kylie and seconded by Erickson to approve this item. Can we get an amendment per Sean's recommendation?
Motion to amend the title by inserting bonds as the last word.
Second.
All right, motion by Kylie and seconded by Erickson on that amendment. Let's go ahead and take a vote on that amendment, please.
Council members Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
All right, the amendment passes. We're back to the main motion as amended. Any discussion, council, on this item? Councilor Erickson?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone that has been involved for years and years and years of really researching this, making sure we have the best fit. All those on Metro Communication that have been on it long before I have, all the county commissioners, the folks at Metro Communication. This isn't taken lightly. I realize it is a substantial amount of money, but it's an investment that this community needs to have for the ongoing growth of our community and ensuring that our public safety has just that, the tools that they need to make sure that they're here to protect our community, and that includes fire as well as police. This will be a state-of-the-art building that will last for generations to come. Had the city not taken really just the lead on doing this and then bringing in Metro, that was really a can that was kicked down the road for years and years, that finally that this is able to go. Councilor Kylie, thank you for your leadership. You've been really leading this your entire tenure on the council as well as Metro Communication, and that doesn't, the time that you've put in is a great deal. Mayor Tanakin, you as well for really emboldening and empowering your staff to making sure that we're doing this carefully and cautiously, but making sure that they have the tools that are needed to grow public safety and giving really the community the ability to feel safe. As we grow, we have additional challenges. And so with that, we need to make sure that we've got those tools for fire and police, as well as our Metro Communications. So I'll proudly support this tonight because of the need in our community. If anybody has been to the last place before, you'll see that it's absolutely a dump. I hate to say it, but it is. We deserve better. And our police and fire deserve better. So I'm excited for this and hope that my colleagues will support this as well. Thank you.
Councilor Kiley.
Thank you. I mentioned during the first reading that this is possibly the most important vote that I will take or make in my term on this council. Public safety should be a priority for everyone, and I believe it is for members of this council. It is extremely important that we have adequate facilities for training our firefighters and our police officers. And it is even more important that we have adequate facilities for our 911 dispatch operators so that they can alert police, fire, sheriff, ambulance of the need that exists out in the community. Because without their efforts, the other first responders don't get an opportunity to respond. So I want to thank all of our members at Metro 911 for a job well done over the years. They're often what I consider to be unsung heroes because they're often overlooked in this very important aspect, but I've referred to them before as the tip of the spear, and I will do so again. They are. Without them, this whole process of public safety doesn't begin. So this is a great project, and I'm very happy to be in a position to support this.
Thank you, Councilor. Other discussion amongst the council on this one? All right, hearing none, we'll vote on the main motion as amended.
Council members Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Next item, please.
Next item is item 27, the item moved earlier in the meeting. Item 27, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into the joint public safety answering point agreement between the city of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County.
Sean Pritchett, Director of Finance again. So this is a complementary item in regard to the last one for the bond ordinance. So as we previously discussed, part of the building proposal for the public safety answering, or for the public safety facility, training facility, has been the inclusion of the public safety answering point to the Metro 911 that would be added on to the classroom facilities. So as we discussed last week in regard to the bond ordinance, the total of the project as it relates to the Metro 911 is approximately $10 million. The city's portion or its contribution, which would be financed with the bond that was just approved, would be $7.85 million. This includes the $6.49 million for construction and an $850,000 contingency, and also includes the city financing the communications tower and the power backup systems. The city would take the lead and have the full contribution on the building portion of the project. The county's contribution is going to be $2.15 million, which they would contribute in 2022. They would provide the funds to the Metro Council agency, who would go and acquire the equipment. In addition to that, they would be providing some lease reductions for the years of 2023 through 2032 for the backup facility in the amount of approximately $27,500 per year for a total of about $275,000. Cumulatively, between the two of those items and the city's contribution, we stay in that 74 to 75% range. For the city, 75 to 76, and the county is at 24 to 25. So it stays with what we have historically been in terms of our contributions to Metro 911 and as our participation in the project. The joint building agreement that is in front of you is consistent with our previous city-county agreements of this nature. It establishes each of the city and the county's contribution. and then provides an opportunity for the county, which would also look to use the server room with the PSAP for hosting some personal property or servers for the city, and includes various typical insurance clauses that we would have in our other agreements. The Metro 911 Council met last week. They're not a party to the agreement, but they consent to the agreement because of obviously the affiliation with the Metro Communications Agency. They did approve that unanimously on September 3rd. The county this morning approved it unanimously with one commissioner absent, but they also approved the same agreement this morning, and so it's being brought forward for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item tonight? All right, councilors, you got any questions for Sean on this?
Move approval. Second, Nitzert.
All right, motion by Selberg, seconded by Nitzert to approve this item. Any discussion on it, council? Councilor Kiley.
I'll just say a little bit more. 7 years ago, when I first joined the Metro Board and we discussed this topic, it seemed like a very distant, I'm not sure I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not sure if I even knew there was an end of the tunnel. And so it is very rewarding that we are here today. I thank all my fellow councilors for the support that you've expressed before, and I look forward to your support this evening. But we do have a couple of members of our Metro team, Scott and Anna, if you could, and if there's anybody else from Metro, if you could stand up and be recognized, please, I would appreciate that. This is the tip of your spear that I was talking about earlier. Your service is very much appreciated by everybody in this room. Thank you very much. This facility, while they're going to benefit, who's going to benefit the most? But the public, the citizens of Sioux Falls are going to benefit as a result of this. This building will give our dispatchers the tools that they need in order to perform their job. So I'm very happy that we are finally here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion on the council on this item? All right, hearing none. Let's take a vote, please.
Council members Nitzert.
Yes.
Selberg. Starr.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Move to item 18.
Item 18, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing appropriations authorizing an increase in property tax revenue pursuant to SDCL 10-13-35 and the means of financing for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 15th, 2020.
Pritchett Show rolls on.
All right, last time you have to hear from me tonight,
All right.
hopefully. So this is a culmination of 9 months of work in bringing forward, again, the 2020 proposed budget for the City of Sioux Falls. I appreciate the time that you guys, the entire council has put into this, and mayor, and the departments and administration. We've had various budget hearings throughout the month of August, and now we get to the stage of actually approving the budget and moving forward with it. So this is that first step. As we talked about in the past, financial responsibility is key to this budget, it's key to the solid financial plan that the city has had, not just for a few years, but for decades, and maintaining that financial balance, being able to maintain that balance and being able to adapt, particularly in times like we are experiencing in today's environment. We have had the financial ability to pause and plan, balance, and adapt. This budget was very strategic, but it is mindful of our current environment. And the budget focuses on having a well-balanced plan, investing in our public safety and health, infrastructure, and of course, engaging our people. As I said, this is the first step, so for your consideration, here is the first reading of the appropriation, which establishes the appropriation and tax assessment for the tax appropriated funds, which is a portion of our total overall budget. Following this item is the public hearing. It's the required public hearing where we receive comment from the public in regard to the budget proposal, which you will be giving consideration to next week and moving forward, hopefully by resolution. So the first budget the full budget will be brought forward next Tuesday. To give you a snapshot of that, And we've gone through this in quite some detail, but to kind of give a quick summary, the city budget is divided into three types of expenses. They are operating, capital, and our internal service funds. The total city proposed budget for 2021 is $593.6 million. Of this, $259.6 million is for operations, $235.6 million is investments in capital expenditures, and $98.4 million is related to internal service funds, such as our health insurance funds, our fleet funds, as well as the pensions for fire and police. The appropriated tax supported funds are shown in Exhibit A to the appropriations ordinance that you have before you. It's also on page 80 of the mayor's proposed budget book. The total amount of the appropriations, the tax appropriations, is $318 million. You can see here the breakdown of the revenues in the budget. Approximately 41% of the revenues are generated by various taxes. 27% is related to charges for goods and services, and 32% is other sources of funding. Property taxes are projected to be $70.8 million as part of the 2021 budget, and sales taxes in the general fund contributing $70.1 million for the general fund and $70.1 million for the sales and use tax fund. The other piece of the more significant of the tax side is the $8 million from the entertainment taxes, which goes into the entertainment tax fund. The property tax assessment for 2021 includes a 2.9% growth factor and a 1.7% CPI. This slide we included with the budget presentation for this year, and it does a good job, I think, of laying out the tax appropriated versus the non-tax appropriated funds. So the appropriation ordinance that's in front of you really supports those tax supported funds that you see up there toward the top. And you can see they're predominantly an operations side, but there is also capital components involved in that. So for our tax supported funds, approximately $215.4 million goes to operations, $102.7 million is invested in capital. The other funds, which are typically your enterprise funds, public parking, power, landfill water, and water reclamation, they have operating of $51.2 million and capital of $127.3 million. Those are not tax appropriated funds, so those are included as part of the budget, but not as part of the tax appropriation. With that, I am happy to answer any questions that you have on the first reading of the ordinance tonight.
All right, thank you, Sean. As Sean mentioned, anyone who is here to speak on the budget, the public hearing and resolution will be the next item on that. You can also speak here specifically about the increase in property tax revenue discussion. So we'll take any public input on that. Good evening.
Good evening, Bruce Danielson. Bruce Danielson. Watching events of the last few months reminds me of the adage often attributed to Voltaire. God is a comedian playing to an audience who refuses to laugh. This body refuses to grasp the seriousness of the events of the day. This body believes if it continues to run circles while keeping its head in the sand, everything will be all right. This can be an explanation of why this body does not see the illegal activities being reported almost every time this body meets in this room. This government has chosen to ignore the assaults committed in this very building, the illegal arrests committed in this town in the name of law enforcement while ignoring real crime. Has this administration ever researched the effects of the free food extortion going on in Sioux Falls? What started as a simple free cup of coffee to law enforcement has escalated to pocket stuffing extra food in big gulps. There are bigger issues we need to discuss than the unnecessary borrowing, creating even more unnecessary borrowing. Your stuff doesn't work very well over here, but the unnecessary borrowing is causing more strife and pain in the community with higher taxes and lost opportunities. You're just now voting on raising our taxes again. Why can't this town's management ever understand it does not need everything at once? Just because we can borrow more money for the latest plaything doesn't mean we have to. You are voting to raise our taxes again to pay for the folly of our recent past. The lack of good sense and foolishness of the last 10 years is getting ready to bite us all in the butt. Voltaire's words have never rung so true as to be demonstrated in many of tonight's votes. God is a comedian playing to an audience who refuses to laugh. You think you're doing God's work up here, but your citizens are being taken for a ride God won't be very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak on this item? All right, we'll get a motion on the floor and we can move in any discussion. A motion would be to set a date for second reading for Tuesday, September 15th.
Sorry, jumped the gun. Move to approve.
Go ahead. All right, do we have a second on that? Motion by Kiley and second by Selberg to set that date. Discussion, councilors, on this.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Starr.
Thank you. I've been nothing but consistent on this issue in my time on the council. We spent this afternoon talking about tens of millions of dollars, how we can pay off debt, how we can put the city in a better financial situation. We look at, Director Pritchett talked about a 1.7% CPI increase, while we tell other members or other things in the budget that we're looking at a 0% increase or less. You know, we looked at the CPI number from back in February, pre-COVID, pre-pandemic. We have the ability, we have the funds, we have the resources to not raise people's taxes. Their property taxes are continuing to skyrocket as the valuations of houses go up. At the same time, we continue to raise property taxes. I'm not going to vote for a property tax increase in any way without making the cuts first. And yes, we've been shown the charts that show us over 10 years it's the fiscally responsible thing to do to put the city in the best position. But I say over and over again, we need to turn that chart over and look at what that cumulative effect is for the homeowners of our city. We watch the elderly, the people who've spent a lifetime in our community making it great, be taxed out of their homes. And yes, this is a small amount in a short amount of time. But again, that chart we saw earlier in our budget hearings that show over almost $11 million if we don't do this cumulatively over 10 years. This is a small amount. Our citizens demand a lot of services, and we continue to provide those for them. We have the funds to do that without raising their property taxes this year. We can take a break in the middle of a pandemic. It's not a time to be pushing for tax increases, no matter how reasonable they appear or how small or how they keep us on pace. When you're about to lose your home and have to go into either assisted living or long-term care because you can't pay the property taxes, you can't continue to keep up with the maintenance, that ends up costing our state even more because someone has to pay the Medicaid and the Medicare that it involves by putting people out of their homes. This is the year to put a stop to this constant small increases every year that turn into large cumulative amounts that tax our people out of their homes.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion, council, on this? All right, we'll take a vote on it, please.
Council members Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg? Yes. Starr?
No.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-1. Next item, please.
Item 19, public hearing for a proposed resolution adopting the budget for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, and the 2021-2025 capital program.
All right, this is the public hearing for our proposed budget resolution. So because this item is not up for final consideration, anyone who's here to speak on our budget will have 3 minutes per person. So at this time, if there's anyone who'd like to speak on the city's proposed budget, you may come forward and do so at this time. Don't all rush at once. Anybody, first come, first serve. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Chris Hill, conductor and bandmaster of the Sioux Falls Municipal Band. And just a few brief words. Over the past few weeks, you've heard from a cross-section of the Sioux Falls community. Some of the people I know, some of them actually I don't even know. What they all had in common was the conviction that the Sioux Falls Municipal Band has enriched their lives and the lives of other taxpayers. You've heard before how the band honors our military veterans, entertains our seniors and others where they live, and brings people to our beautiful parks and mentors young people. You've heard about the professionalism of our band. This is not an amateur organization who performs for our own benefit. We are a professional organization who plays for the benefit of the audience, much like a professional sports team of any type. You've heard about the impact we've had on the lives of people in different neighborhoods in Sioux Falls and on the lives of different individuals within this city. This is a quality organization that operates on a shoestring budget that has been going down dramatically over the last 10 years or so. Yet we've been able to attract world-class soloists who have performed with the band for a fraction of their usual fees. Sioux Falls has always prided itself on being the best city in America. And I think that America's best city deserves to have America's best band. So I would respectfully request that you fully restore funding for the Sioux Falls Municipal Band. And I am still willing, if anyone wants to get together, have coffee, I'd like to meet with you and discuss this if you have any questions, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else here to speak tonight on the city's proposed budget? Please come forward. Good evening.
Hello. I'm Karen Dunham, a Navy veteran and a member of the USS South Dakota Battleship Memorial Foundation. I've always admired the military, the men and women that served our country. And so in 1966, I joined the Naval Reserve and served 17 and a half years as part of the Naval Reserve and the Ready Reserve. During that time, in 1969, I was lucky enough to be at the dedication of the Battleship South Dakota Memorial, which that brought to me the opportunity to host the reunions for the crew members of the South Dakota. And we have been doing that for 50 years, last year being the last 50th year that we've held several reunions for the crew members, their families and things. So over the years of 50 years, we've served a lot of veterans by the municipal band, and they've enjoyed it a lot. We always had a program out on the site. The band played for an hour before our program started. They played the national anthem to start off our program, and after reading the fallen sailors from the year before, they followed the program by closing it out with the taps. They were always accommodating, willing to work with us no matter what we needed, and it was just great to have them. The sailors that came, I made a note here that one of the people, and maybe some of you have heard of him, Calvin Graham, who was the youngest sailor to ever join the Navy at the age of 12. He was on this ship, and he was here for a reunion several years ago. And all the crew members keep wanting to come back. Now, when they came back last year, the first year we had 300 and some. Last year we had 5. And they want to keep coming back, but they're all 97 years old, and most of them can't travel anymore. But they don't ever want to leave the ship. And so I guess I'd say that the band has done an excellent job with us on the Battleship South Dakota Memorial crew members. They've enjoyed it a lot. And I just can't say enough good things about it. And we'd certainly be lost. They made it a first-class affair, and we just need to keep them. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for your service.
Sir.
Good evening,
Neil
sir.
Landine, veteran also. Thank you, Karen. 41 years in the military. I retired in 2018. One of the last things I did was speak at the Memorial Day ceremony at the Veterans Administration. The band was there. I can't tell you how important it is to maintain that for the city of Sioux Falls, to me, and I'm sure to the community as large. I grew up in this city, been in and out of it for 61 years, almost 62. But the bottom line is I've watched Sioux Falls grow and get better throughout my life. And every time that Sioux Falls comes out high on the best cities in America, it just makes you swell with pride that we're there, even considered on that, because believe it or not, we are a flyover state. If you've ever seen the New Yorker poster, it's New York, the Hudson River, New Jersey, California, the Pacific Ocean. That's the way a lot of people look at us. But this community has something that very few have, and that is the band. And they support the military community here, and if you really want to be honest with it, regionally. Yeah, please do everything you can to keep it, sir. Thank you very much.
Gil.
Mayor.
Thanks for your
Council.
service. Good evening.
Good evening. John Stratman, Marine Corps veteran. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that Mayor's being awarded the Alumni of the Year from Dordt College. Congratulations. Thank you. I come here tonight because a lot of people think this is about a group of people, you know, kind of an artsy-fartsy kind of issue. And who wants to spend their money on something like that? Who wants to spend tax dollars on something like that? You know, cut that budget. Get rid of those. But it isn't quite that simple. The band represents a lot more than music. It's less about music than it is quality of life. The quality of life is enhanced every time the band goes out and plays, whether it's at one of the parks or one of the nursing homes, whether it's at the Battleship Memorial, the quality of life goes up. Many of the people that are in those nursing homes where they attend on a regular basis and play for those seniors that are in those facilities, there's hundreds and hundreds of veterans there. I've had the privilege of speaking to some of those people. And the difference it makes, how uplifting it is when they get a chance to listen to the band, makes a big difference in the quality of their life. Around the community, there's a lot of people who can't afford $75 or $100 or $150 ticket to go see Garth Brooks. They don't have to pay anything to come see the band play. Many of those people are veterans. There's hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people who go to the city parks, who go to those programs and enjoy that. You know, it's less about money and budgets than it is about education. On a personal note, I have had the privilege to take my grandchildren every Memorial Day. We go over to the Memorial Day presentation at the VA, and I've seen a number of you folks there. But when they play the Armed Services Medley, and they stand up for me and every other Marine Corps vet that's out there. I also have them stand up for their other grandfather who isn't here. He, like Karen, was a Navy vet.
Thank you, John.
And they deserve to have that opportunity.
Appreciate your time. Thank you for your service. Good evening.
Good evening. Reynold Neseba, representing myself as a resident tonight, but also state senator here in District 15. It's good to see the mayor two nights in a row. I'm here for three things I want to say about the municipal band. I'm a big fan of the municipal band, but the first thing I want to say is I want to thank the mayor for asking the question about, is this the right way to fund this? And I think you should be doing that when you do budget hearings, is to bring up items and say, is this the best way to do it? Should we do this in a different way? Can we do it better? It's appropriate and good to ask that question. Judging by the sentiments of people I talked to, looking at the letters to the editor, hearing the words tonight, I think there's a lot of love and affection for our municipal band. But still, thanks to the mayor for bringing this up. Second, I'd urge you to vote for and support the band. And I know that there's going to be a resolution tonight, and it's important that you consider that resolution, because we're in a situation now where we're funding the band for 1 year, but when you have a director like Chris Hill, who has to go out and recruit recruit new players, retain the players that he has. It just creates uncertainty in an organization to not know what's going to be. So I hope that you can figure out a way to fund this for multiple years or simply renew this contract for 5 years to give some stability to it. But then I want you to do one more thing. I want you to really think about how our municipal band fits into our overall strategy of our One Sioux Falls. You know, somebody said, the gentleman back here was talking about South Dakota, about it being artsy. We're the Mount Rushmore state. Public art put us on the map, right? Our Washington Pavilion, our sculpture walk, our Arc of Dreams, our South Dakota Symphony Orchestra, our Levitt, our municipal band are all part of that. We need to do a better job of marketing it, making sure people know about what a treasure that we have here in Sioux Falls. So please support the municipal band and figure out how to fund it for the next several years. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Good evening.
Evening. My name is Jill Baker, and I'm from Sioux Falls. I'm speaking to you tonight not just as a citizen, but also as an Army veteran, the daughter of a retired Air Force officer, an advocate for veteran and military families, and as a member of the Disabled American Veterans Organization. Music is vital to military life. Reveille is played as a bugle call to signal the beginning of the duty day on base. Retreat is played to mark the end of the duty day and precedes the playing of the national anthem. Taps is played to mark the start of quiet hours on base, which is 9 p.m. As service members and veterans, we stand with pride when we hear our individual service songs played by the band during the Armed Forces Salute. Tears sting my eyes when I stand and place my hand over my heart as they play the national anthem. I sing loudly, clapping along to patriotic songs such as Your Grand Old Flag, This Land is Your Land, and God Bless the USA. Chris Hill, along with his fellow musicians of the municipal band, have played these songs for our community for so long and so often that they probably know these patriotic songs by heart. In the past, the band has performed at the Armed Forces Day celebration, Flag Day at Veterans Memorial Park, the Independence Day celebration, and the JC's annual 4th of July celebration. We need to fully fund the municipal band because we need them to inspire our patriotic spirit and give us a way to celebrate our country and our freedoms through music. We need to fully fund the municipal band so that we can pay tribute to the fallen and remember those who fought so bravely so that we might be free. I am asking you, esteemed city council members, to reinstate funding to the municipal band as we have in the past and ensure that it is fully funded long into the future. Thank you, and God bless America.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Anyone else this evening speak on this topic? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Angie Larson. I'm a longtime resident of Sioux Falls as well. I would just like to echo the sentiments of the others you've heard tonight and urge you all to please continue to support the long-term funding and stability of our band. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Angie.
Tim Stenga. Just amazing that these people will get up for this band, but yet wouldn't stand up for the people that are suffering in this city on high taxes. We will raise property tax whenever we want to, but yet when we want to keep something, we'll raise property tax to keep it. The sad part about it is I go to the Legion. I listen to the Legionnaire band. They go and they fundraise every year to keep that band together. They don't have any problems doing it because they've done it for years. These guys are wasting their breath because why? You guys are going to give him the money because you're going to raise taxes on the people of Sioux Falls.
All right, thanks. Anyone else this evening? Good evening.
Hi, I'm Heather DeWitt. And first I want to thank you for your hard work for our city, particularly during an incredibly challenging time. I am truly grateful. I am also here in support of the municipal band. Please ensure that city funding is in place for next year and well into the future. I understand the budget decisions are going to be really tough this year, but I hope you're able to keep a 100-year tradition continuing beyond the challenges thrown at all of us by 2020. I grew up right here in Sioux Falls, and I'm very proud of it, and am raising 2 now teenage daughters. And we've loved raising our kids here. It is an incredible gift, and I am truly thankful to all of you and to the city employees that make that happen. My experience with the municipal band is just as a lifelong fan. I've been going since I was a toddler. My grandma started bringing me as a little girl, and so what did I do when I had kids? I brought them to municipal band concerts, and there they learned the value of community. Sorry, I am so nervous. Community and about patriotism and what it means to be part of something bigger than themselves. And so I'm just here to ask you, I'm like totally floored by all the veterans who would come speak. So that is all. And then my daughter wants to talk to you too.
I love it. Thanks, Heather. Come on up, bud. No, Bob, this girl's up next right here. Come on up, kiddo. Hello.
Hi. My name is Addie DeWitt, and I'm here to talk to you about the municipal band. I've always liked going to listen with my parents, and I really like it when they play songs that I recognize. And I know that a lot of different people like it because I've seen little kids and a bunch of families and stuff. And I feel like it's really special that the band has been here for over 100 years and that they still play like the kind of music people like. I hope that I can be in the municipal band when I grow up. I want to say thank you to the municipal band musicians because they made me want to be better at my instrument. I want to say thank you to the city council and mayor for making Sioux Falls a great place to live.
Thanks, Abby. Appreciate you being here. Good evening.
Good evening, Bob Colby returning. I played in high school band. I even played in the college band. Was I any good? Not really. Did I enjoy it? Yes. When I go to a musical event, I enjoy it because I'm a part of a group experience that is positive. I've never been part of a band performance that was negative. Earlier I said that we elect you to do what's correct, not to do because you think it's right. Do I expect anything to happen? No. Someone's going to have to say, I was wrong, you were right.
All right, thank you. Anyone else this evening to talk on this item? Please come forward. Good evening, ma'am.
My name is Darlene Fick. I'm a lifelong resident of Sioux Falls, and I am speaking in support of keeping the municipal band in the budget. It is a 100-year investment and asset to this city, and I think it would be foolish to just kick it away. It adds to our community in a way that nothing else can. And I'd just like to reinforce what Chris said about it's a professional group. There are many groups in town that play because for their own edification, etc. This is not one of those groups. This is a professional group performing a professional service that is needed in a community of this size. Thank you again for considering.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Shannon Abels. I am also a citizen of Sioux Falls, and I am also here to speak towards the support of the Sioux Falls Municipal Band. It belongs to the city. It's been part of the city for 100 years. It belongs to the citizens, and I think that we need to continue that for the citizens. Thanks.
Shannon. Anyone else to speak this evening on this topic? All right, I'm not seeing any others, so we will move on to our next item, please.
Item 20, a resolution vacating East 21st Street from the west right-of-way line of South Gary Drive to the east property line of Tract 5 of the Cherry Creek addition to the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, as shown on Exhibit A.
Good evening, Kurt.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Kurt Peppel, Public Works Engineering. The right-of-way in question is in East Central Sioux Falls, just east of Cleveland Avenue. Property owner and the engineering division worked together and submitted the right-of-way application pursuant to South Dakota law, and they complies with the city street vacation policy. Easements will be reserved for existing utilities on the east and west end of the area to be vacated. A neighborhood meeting was not required as there is no road there today. Engineering requests your support and approval.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this one? Councilors, you got any questions for Kurt on this item?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Selberg.
Motion by Erickson, seconded by Selberg to approve. Discussion, councilors? All right, hearing none, let's take a vote, please.
Council members Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg? Starr?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Item 21.
Item 21, a resolution vacating a portion of Merlin Avenue lying adjacent to Tract 1 of Hobson's Addition, an addition in the east half of Section 8, Township 100 North, Range 49 West, 5th Prime Meridian, Lincoln County, South Dakota, and adjacent to lots 1 and 2 in Block 2 of the Bend Addition to the city of Sioux Falls, Lincoln County, South Dakota, as shown on Exhibit A.
This right-of-way is in southeast Sioux Falls near 57th, East 57th Street and Veterans Parkway. Property owner submitted the right-of-way vacation petition pursuant to South Dakota law and complies with the street vacation policy. A neighborhood meeting was not required as there is no road there today. Vacating the right-of-way will aid in the development of the area. Engineering requests your support and approval.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item? Council, questions for Kurt on this vacation?
Approve, Erickson.
Second, Jensen.
Motion by Erickson, seconded by Jensen to approve this item. Discussion, council? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote. Tom?
Council members Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Item 22.
Item 22, a resolution approving the release of a permanent utility easement located in lots 1 and 2 in Block 2 of the Bend Addition to the city of Sioux Falls, Lincoln County, South Dakota.
This item is related to the previous item. It's a 10-foot utility easement that was lying adjacent to that right-of-way. There are no facilities within the utility easement, and it's no longer needed. Engineering requests your support.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this one tonight? Councilors, questions for Kurt?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Jensen.
Motion by Erickson, seconded by Jensen to approve. Discussion, council? Hearing none, we'll take a vote.
Council members Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg? Yes. Starr?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. We'll move to 23.
Item 23, a resolution approving the release of a vested drainage right located in Lot 3C in Block 2 of Western Valley Addition to the city of Sioux Falls and Tract 4 of Burlington Northern Santa Fe Addition to the city of Sioux Falls, all in Minnehaha County, South Dakota.
This vested drainage right is near on the property of the old Ice and Rec Center, and a portion of it is on the adjacent property. The vested drainage right is essentially as a drainage easement over the property. City staff and Norman Engineering prepared the easement release documents. There are no facilities within the area to be released, and the drainage needs are no longer needed. A release of the vested drainage right will aid in the redevelopment of the property, and engineering requests your support and approval.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Council, do you have any questions for a motion?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Kylie.
Motion by Erickson, seconded by Kylie to approve. Any discussion, councilors? Hearing none, we'll vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg, Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 24.
Item 24, a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, correcting the legal description in vacation resolution number 72-20.
This resolution, on 72-20 was approved on July 7th for a right-of-way vacation on Scarlet Oak Trail in the south end of the Arbor's Edge Edition. Outlot B was referred to as Outlet B on the original resolution. Correcting is necessary to ensure proper recording with the Register of Deeds. And engineering requests your support and approval.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public to speak on this one? Councilors, any questions here? Motion, please.
Move approval, Nitzert. Second, Selberg.
Motion by Nitzert, seconded by Selberg. Any discussion? All right, let's vote on this one, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg, Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 25.
Item 25, a resolution approving the special assessment roll for the Main Street Business Improvement District in the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Good evening, Dustin.
Evening, Mayor, Council, Dustin Powers, Planning and Development Services. Item 25 is asking for council approval for a special assessment for the Main Street Business Improvement District. The map on the screen depicts the bid boundaries, which is the same boundaries as the downtown district. The identified area is approximately 450 acres, and 230 properties in downtown will be levied by the resolution tonight. Funds generated by the Business Improvement District are administered through Downtown Sioux Falls. Joe Batchelor is here tonight to provide you some details about the services that are provided for these funds. But before Joe comes up, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. The resolution tonight that you'll be voting on is a cumulative assessment of $189,776.56 over those 230 properties. The maximum assessment any one individual property is assessed at is $1,700 through the bid assessment. The Main Street bid has been in place since 1989, so this is the 31st year of its existence. A notice of hearing was published twice in the paper, as well as each individual property owner was provided a copy of the notice of tonight's hearing, as well as a Main Street Business Improvement District Board meeting that was held on August 26th. At that meeting, the Main Street Business Improvement District Board did unanimously recommend approval of this. So I'll turn it over to Joe, and he can go through some of the services that are provided by DTSF.
Great, thanks, Dustin. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening, Joe Batchelor, President of Downtown Sioux Falls Incorporated. I brought our latest copy of our annual report here that provides a good overview for what all DTSF does. A lot of the bid services are in there. I'll leave these with Mr. Jim David, and he can distribute those to city council members. Business improvement districts exist for a lot of different reasons. They are urban place management organizations intended to provide services above and beyond what the typical municipal services are. So for DTSF, we have to abide by what the state statute allows for, and the state statute allows for a variety of services, from public parking to capital improvements, but for DTSF, what we focus on are public place improvements, activities that promote the district, and employing personnel for the programs and services. Those programs and services fall into four main buckets. We've got economic development, events, marketing, and public improvements. With the public improvements, we have our Clean and Green team. And the Clean and Green team is kind of the boots on the ground, if you will, really trying to clean up the sidewalks, water the flowers, make impact in those day-to-day types of enhancements that our visitors to downtown really appreciate. We also put up holiday Christmas lights. We put up enough Christmas lights to go from here to Rowena and back. We sweep enough sidewalks to go from here to New York City. We have 100 planters that we water. We have 110 hanging flower baskets that we water. So we're really trying to create an inviting, welcoming urban experience for our visitors. Cleanliness is really something, if you have an urban district that isn't clean, that tends to be something that detracts people from coming down and visiting. So that's something that we really focus on. With economic development, we have pedestrian counters that provides us really good data to understand if what we're doing has an impact or not. We have a number of events that we help fund, like Moonlight Movies, every Saturday night, June through August. And that brings clientele to downtown that might not normally experience downtown or have entertainment options on those evenings. Some other events as well. We do some marketing activities in addition to these programs. And one of the things that we also do is we try to really try to pioneer new ideas that can help forward the district. And a couple of examples of those are the painted bump outs that we did last year, or the pop-up dog park that we did the year before that, to really try to pioneer concepts and be kind of the tip of the spear, the advocacy organization, if you will, for some new ideas that can help transform downtown. So with that, I will pause and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item? Councilors, you got any questions for Joe or for Dustin on the bid?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Councilor Kiley. Any discussion, council, on this? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote on it.
Council members Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg? Yes. Starr? Yes. Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Next item, please.
Next item, item 26, a resolution including certain contiguous territory within the corporate limits of the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, annexation 12555, 2020, 26987 South Minnesota Avenue, West 81st Street, and South Minnesota Avenue.
Hey, Jeff.
Hello, Jeffrey Schmidt for Planning and Development Services. This is a petitioned annexation. It's on the south side of town. It's pretty much completely surrounded by the city of Sioux Falls. It's 2.5 acres. The applicant is here tonight, Mr. Roger Lamp, and we've been working on this project. He's the trustee since back in 2015. We've been working on this, and he's been working to get the family to move it forward. They are willing to do it now, and all urban services are available, so they would like to make it available for the city of Sioux Falls.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item? Come on forward, sir.
I'm Roger Lamp, trustee. I got to thank Jeff for being patient with us because it's been a long battle. But they're finally ready to move forward. This happens to be the last piece of a quarter section of land that belonged to this family over the last 20, 25 years that is now in the city. So this would complete it. And I think they would be happy to see this have affirmative vote. Any questions? That's my best.
Sounds good. Thank you for being here. All right. Any questions for the property owner, for Jeff on this one, council?
Move approval, Nitzert.
Second, Kiley.
Motion approved by Nitzert, seconded by Councilor Kiley on this. Any discussion, councilors? All right, we'll vote on it.
Council members Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr? Yes. Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Move on to next item.
Item 28, a resolution approving the collective bargaining agreement for police officers and sergeants, Sioux Falls Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 1, LC.
Good evening, Erica.
I'm going to allow all these fine folks to come into the room real quick before we start.
The safest place to be tonight, right? You know. filter over to the other side of the room there too, you guys. There's some room over there. Oh. All right, go ahead, Erica.
All right, we're set. Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. As you all know, I'm Erica Beck. I serve as the Mayor's Chief of Staff, and I am honored to be here tonight to talk to you about both this item and the following item at a very high level, and then I'm going to turn it over to both Ryan Sage and Bill O'Toole to talk in more detail about each contract. As I said, it's truly an honor for me to be here this evening representing Mayor Ten Haken's office and bringing forward resolutions for your consideration of the collective bargaining agreements for both the Sioux Falls Fire Association and the Sioux Falls Fraternal Order of Police, of which roughly 435 of our 1,300 city employees are represented. Fundamental to negotiations has been our very intentional approach to building relationships formed on the foundations of trust and understanding. This approach has been integral to strengthening our relationship with each union's leadership team. Reflected in tonight's agreements are our focused efforts on remaining competitive in the current hiring market, addressing our ability to recruit and retain quality public safety professionals. In addition to the 5 additional officers requested in the 2021 police budget and the 15 cadets requested for Fire Station 12 in the 2021 fire budget, we also anticipate 46 retirements between fire and police over the next few years, of which place increased importance on our overall market competitiveness. The actions being taken by this body tonight with respect to the investment into a new public safety training facility in Metro 911 Center, along with what I anticipate will be your positive reaction to the 2 contracts in front of you tonight, are unifying for our public safety professionals and a demonstration of respect for the daily sacrifices that they make for our community, keeping it a safe place for us to live and for us to conduct business. Thank you again for your time tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Sage, our Assistant City Attorney, who's going to talk in more detail about the first contract in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Good evening, Ryan.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Ryan Sage from the City Attorney's Office, Assistant City Attorney under Mr. Koistra. My role at the City Attorney's Office is to assist with union negotiations, and so we did that this year. We started early in the year with the police department, and that's the first contract under their resolution before you. A few of those major highlights are the mayor made a big push earlier this year to improve the flexibility for employees to volunteer throughout the community, and so that was one of the articles that we pitched, and the union agreed to. It was a great conversation regarding positive community interaction. And so those union members of the FOPLC will be entitled to 8 hours of volunteer leave to be able to contribute more in our community in a positive light. The next change I want to address with you is about time off benefits. The contracts currently required a certain amount of time of service before those benefits could be utilized, even though they were accrued. With police departments specifically, time off is one of the issues given the number of officers that are needed to patrol the streets. And so we made a conscious effort to work with the FOPLC to remove those barriers so those benefits could be utilized the moment that they were accrued. With the FOPLC, we reached a 3-year agreement. That includes financial and non-economic provisions for all 3 years. The wage increases for 2021 are 4%. That includes a 1.5% COLA and a 2.5% market adjustment to continue to work with the recruitment and retention that we need to keep our community safe. In 2022 and 2023, it calls for a 2.5% increase. That should keep us competitive and keep the retention in order to keep our community safe. As you recall, in the last contract, we started to get into specialty pay. That accelerated here under this contract to include multiple specialties, as well as increase that dollar amount, including training and administration. As you know, our officers are very well trained. They handle themselves very professionally. And so this assures that we will continue to have that positive training throughout the year. Sergeant pay, it also increases a bonus for sergeants at the end once they reach their maximum step to be able to continue to receive a financial incentive for positive performance. We also, in order to work more on the recruitment side, we created a recruitment program in order to give an incentive to an officer for recruiting and referring a successful candidate. And then in order to work on some of the hire backs for vacancies, we modified that language so that the same officer wouldn't be required to work the same spot. So with that, I don't have anything further for you. Answer any questions, or if you'd like to speak with any member of the FOPLC, I'm sure they're here as well.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. First, I'll open up to the public. Anyone from the public here to speak on this topic tonight?
Sierra Broussard, Sioux Falls. I think that's the best thing y'all can do for the police, right? Because we had that nonsense riot that went on with Julian, that was a state trooper that's been internally investigated for his role in this protest that followed to riot. And then I kept on to the mayor about getting on his chief of police, putting his foot on his butt. Because we have crime. Street Crimes Unit has how many officers that can't even keep up with crime? I'm not even going to begin to tell you. But there's case logs that are back on back burner because they can't keep up. So we can just say all day long, we love the police, we love the police, we love the police. But yet they're struggling every day. Look at Pettigrew neighborhood. We have the police, and mark my words, this week we're policing our neighborhood. Because they don't have time to get the crime off the streets because these gangs want to throw up shields and want from 1st to 5th Street and take control over the neighborhood. So we say we're going to give the police a raise and just dress them up and let the PTSD just go through the roof. But yet they're struggling every day because we don't have enough officers. So we're gonna give them more money and we're gonna overwork them. Is that what we're saying here? I am sick and tired of fighting with some of these policemen to get this criminal activity off the streets. We don't have enough police officers. We can be recruiting for more police officers. We got 15. Y'all can say we got 15. Out of the 15, we might have 5 that's gonna make it. Because when they see their first drug overdose or their first dead body or sexual assault of a child, they're gonna quit. We sit here every day to get the police money and raise. Let's give them 10%. That's not going to do nothing. Each one of y'all needs to go in these high crime areas. The police is going from call to call to call and can't keep up. Sure, let's give them a 6.5% raise. Sure. And let them go from the west to the south to the east to the north, and they're fighting crime and can't even stay in their beat because they're so short-staffed. So when are we going to get more police officers? Y'all just looking at me like I'm dummies up here. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of fighting crime. I'm sick of doing citizens arrests and cleaning up the neighborhood in Pettigrew Neighborhood Association and Whittier. And I'm doing it. The citizens are doing it because the police can't keep up on calls. So somebody has to police the neighborhood. We can't have fighting and people busting noses outside on Pettigrew Neighborhood and choking going on and domestics that are happening to where her nose is bleeding because she's gasping for air. Are you kidding me? This is what we're facing in the city. We're back behind 20 years. The city is growing. We need more police officers. We can recruit mayor, but the mayor doesn't want to recruit. I fought for those body cameras that the chief of police was against because of the cloud situation. And now we're going to be accredited, right? Accreditation. I've been after this for 4 years, right? So now they're going to be accredited. I'm sick and tired of speaking on behalf of some of these policemen. 6.5% raise. How many undercovers do we have for street crime unit? How many undercovers do we have for drug task forces that can't keep up? So all these officers back here, lovely 6.5% raise, but they're going to work their behinds off for that 6.5% and still won't have the help that they need. Because on one domestic call might take 2, 3, 4, 5 officers tied up on the SWAT team. Look what happened on Western the other night with the SWAT. But we're doing this because now if the riot wouldn't have happened in that protest, would they would have got that raise? Probably not. They should get that raise and they deserve that raise. But they're sitting here doing overtime, trying to keep up with calls for the city. And I sit here and I preach, and the mayor is like falling on deaf ears with y'all. And the chief of police too, him back here too. I'm tired of fighting crime on these streets.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? All right, seeing none. Council, move to any questions you may have. I see that we have several members of our union leadership here. We have Chief here, we have Ryan, we have Bill, Erica. Questions for any of those folks? All right, I'm not hearing any. I'd love to entertain a motion on this item.
Move to approve.
Brecky?
All right, I'm going to give the motion to Councilor Brecky, second to Councilor Kiley on that. Discussion amongst the council on this? Councilor Neitzer.
I just want to say that it's really an honor to have all of you here tonight. I want you to know that, and thank you for your service. I want you to know that you have my full support, and I believe the full support of this entire city council and this mayor. Unlike other communities, you can count on politicians to be behind you. As long as I'm here, there will never be a discussion about defunding or any of that nonsense. I'm proud that we're able to come to an agreement tonight. I'm thrilled to see that we're not at the impasse that we have been in the last few times. And I think more than ever right now, your morale is so important. And to have this happen right now really, really is a big deal. And the other thing that I want you to know, and I think you know it, is that the citizens are behind you. The citizens are behind you. They support you. So regardless of whatever we see on the national news, know here in Sioux Falls, you are supported, and we've got your back, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion, Council, on this motion to approve a contract? Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I know Chief of Staff Beck is probably too modest to say this, but what really made a difference, what I've seen from the outside, is the mayor and the Chief of Staff stepping in and being involved in the negotiations. It's really made a difference the time I've been on this council to see the way you were treated this time around. And I've voted against this deal twice in my time on the council because I couldn't see forcing a contract on a group of people. And to be able to come to an agreement tonight is probably one of my proudest moments of sitting up here. Being able to respect and honor and pay the individuals and the morale that boost that comes with it. So again, like Councilor Neitzer said, thank you. Thank you for your service to this community. Thanks for hanging tough and doing the right thing for your brother and sister officers. And thank you for being involved in your leadership of the police force and the officers and sergeants. So thank you. And again, I'm going to be proud to vote yes on this agreement.
All right, thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion, Council, on this item? All right, hearing none. Let's take a vote, please.
Council members Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg. Yes. Starr.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it. Move on to our next item.
Item 29, a resolution approving the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and Sioux Falls Firefighters Association.
All right, who's kicking this one off? We'll let these guys exit. Ryan got stuck in the back. There we go. Welcome back, sir.
Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. On this contract, just like Chief of Staff Beck indicated, she spoke a little bit high level. The changes here in this contract, the IAFF and the city reached a 3-year term, but this contract involves a wage reopener after the first year. The reason for that is obviously uncertain economic times. When this contract was negotiated, we certainly needed to be a little bit more cautious about where things were. As always, the IAFF was a great group to work with. Their leadership is certainly professional as always. And those major contract changes will involve a 1.5% market-based adjustment for next year. So there's 0% COLA based on where inflation was trending at the time this contract was reached, but it does include a market adjustment to keep us competitive and keep our firefighters as one of the premier organizations in the nation. We did also increase training pay and paramedic pay. So the last contract, there was a pilot program to involve more firefighters become paramedics. That has taken off, I guess, and so we're we're making that more of a solid 5% versus a fixed dollar amount. We are also increasing some premium standby pay for the holidays where they're not able to travel and be with their families they'd like to because they're serving our community. So a little more of a recognition for the sacrifice that they're making. Other than that, we've moved a few items from contract into administrative policy to allow the department to work a little bit more fluidly through those issues as they arise. And then the last change I'd like to highlight is the city has always been great to military service. When firefighter was deployed, they were not able to accrue holiday pay. This contract now allows them to go ahead and accrue that holiday pay that they're basically leaving on the table for serving our country. So again, we'll be around for any questions, but thank you for your consideration in this matter.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Anyone from the public here to speak on this topic tonight? All right, councilors, do you have any questions? We have members of the firefighters union here. We have Chief, Bill, Ryan, and Erica all here to answer any questions you may have.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Jensen.
Motion by Councilor Erickson to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Jensen. Discussion amongst the council. Councilor Neisert.
I don't want to leave fire out, so thank you for your service and thank you for putting your lives on the line for us every day. Really appreciate it. You have our support.
Thank you, Councilor. Other discussion, council, on this contract? All right, hearing none. Call for a vote on this, please.
Council members Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Really appreciate it.
You are the only participant in this conference.
It's not true. We're all right, we'll move on to item 30, please.
Item 30, a resolution recommending that the city negotiate a municipal bandmaster agreement.
All right, who's speaking of this one? Councilor Starr?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just the brief thing. We'll have a chance to vote on amendments for the budget next week. And I feel really confident that we'll have the votes and the support to do a one-year deal, funding for 1 year. This resolution really is trying to make a statement that it takes more than a one-year deal to move our band forward. I don't want to come back next year and do this same thing again. I love all these people who support their band, but I prefer they stay home with their families and rest assured and visit the concerts. So what this intent of this resolution is strictly to say to the city and the administration that we want to see a multi-year contract negotiated with the bandmaster. Originally, I had included a 5-year. It turned into a 3-year, but I don't want to hamper the discussion and the negotiation as part of putting it into the resolution, but basically saying that it has to be more than a 1-year deal. We can't kick the band forward 1 year. We can do some negotiating and things, but it's difficult for sponsors and donors, benefactors to contribute to a program that sits on a rocky foundation, whether people wondering whether the band is going to exist the following year. This gives the stability and asking the administration to negotiate a multi-year deal so that the band has the foundation that they need to go forward to raise funds and do some of those things on their own to become a little more self-sufficient. But at the same time, this is a municipal band. It's a professional group that has the ability to move forward. Again, it's a municipal band. Municipal means that it's run by the city, it's owned by the city, and this is what we do for our residents. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Please come forward. Good evening again.
Good evening again. I'm not here to talk. Obviously, it's awkward for me to come up and talk about, something that involves me. But what I want to do is approach this from how it affects the band, okay? There are many reasons why the resolution is good for the future of the band. The primary reason is that planning. If every part of city government has, they look more than 1 year in advance. Almost any successful organization of any kind looks more than 1 year in advance. If we're not sure if we're going to be in existence in 2 years, it makes planning for next year difficult, maybe even impossible. Stability is another good word. we have some money at the Sioux Falls Area Foundation, and that gives us about $2,000 per year to do a special project. If we ever want to raise additional funds for special projects, which I would like to do, I mean, it would be great, you know, honestly, raising a full amount or having a 501c3 is not possible, but we can raise some money to like raise the salaries of our soloists. If we get, you know, people that, you know, so we can pay them, so I'm not relying on special favors to me to get a $4,000 soloist to perform for $400, which we do, okay? I want to be able to tell potential donors for this project, their gifts are not going to be going to a dying organization. And that's really important because people don't give to dying organizations. You know, as I said before, I'm on the fundraising committee for the South Dakota Symphony. When things are looking terrible is not when people give more money. When we're looking great, that's when people give money. So that's a very important thing. Another thing is professional retention. All right, we have some amazing musicians, like has been said before, it's a professional organization. We've been able to keep some really incredibly talented people in town playing, performing for the citizens of Sioux Falls instead of going out to various other places in the country to perform. If the band's not stable, we're going to lose these individuals as we limp along, wondering which season is going to be our last. So for these reasons, I support this resolution, and thank you very much. I appreciate everything that you've been doing.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Come on forward, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Well, now that my emotions are under control after seeing all the veterans come speak, I have my act together a little bit better. But I wanted to show you how this fits in with what the city website says you're after. And so I think some of you have seen this before, but I thought I'd put it in front of you and in front of the public for what interest there is in how it fits together with what I see as the future of Sioux Falls, and what the municipal band, what I've noticed that it can do for Sioux Falls as a whole, and why I'd like to see you develop a contract that lasts for more than a couple years so that they can move forward and do big things. So the other thing I wanted to tell you is that because I've been going to these concerts for literally my whole life, I've gotten to meet a ton of concert goers, because like I said, it's a community thing. And so some of the people that I've met are out-of-towners who come to Sioux Falls, and then they spend all their money all day long waiting for the concert that evening. So that doesn't hurt a thing. I think that's pretty nice for our tax dollar, that they're coming to Sioux Falls and visiting restaurants and stores. And then I also wanted to talk about how for people, like sometimes I'll see a couple who's older than me sitting holding hands listening to music that reminds them of days gone by. Sometimes I'll see people, veterans of course, who are there, but I think they've built a legacy in Sioux Falls, and I would hate to see us not continue that legacy for a whole bunch more generations. So that's all I have. And if you'd like this sent, I'm sure we can send it somehow. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. Anyone else here to speak on this topic tonight? All right, counselors, come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Randa Heller, and I came before the council 3 years ago when the Parks Department stopped the Summer Singers, and my granddaughters were involved in that. And I was astounded at the number of kids in that program that were lower income kids that really, really loved that program. And the Parks Department, it was already a done deal by the time I came here. And I'm not exactly sure what the history of this is, but I will tell you, we need to decide who we are and where we are. And the municipal band not only has a great legacy, but it also, I think, has a great legacy for the future as well as the past. And I know that we have money because I saw them starting to string the lights for Christmas. I know that it's allocation. I'd rather have fewer lights and have the band. There's always a way to do it. I'm not exactly sure how this came to be, but I will tell you, sometimes you don't appreciate something until you lose it, or you almost lose it. And I don't think that this is something that should be lost, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else here to speak on this topic tonight? All right, councilors, let's get a motion on the floor. We can move into any discussion on this.
Move to approve, Star.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion by Star and seconded by Brecky to approve this item. Discussion amongst the council on this? Councilor Brecky?
The reason I'm seconding this item is because we've received so much positive feedback from the council, and I knew that there was an amendment in place, but I do feel that it's important that we discuss the two together, because there is a contract that's about to expire in December, and it would be so nice if we could, come together and tell all these people who've been coming now for weeks, and I've heard nothing but positive things and just beautiful tributes to our municipal band. And so if we could just come together tonight and say, they need some time to plan, innovate, adjust, execute, succeed. And if they knew that we're just simply sending a message to the mayor and his team, to build a recipe for success for them into the contract negotiations. And that's really all that's my desire, that's the intent of this resolution. Just build, some success into that. It doesn't have any specific, timelines or recommendations as to that. We recognize that you're fully capable of doing that, Mayor and your team. But I do think it would send a really powerful, strong message to the community if we could just tell them, yes, we're going to make this. We're going to create a recipe for success. And I hope you approve this resolution.
All right, thank you, Councilor. Other discussion, Councilor Kiley.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, I have a short statement that Councilor Kurt Sale asked me to read since he is unavailable this evening. And again, this is Councilor Kurt Sale's words. Fellow council members, as I have previously stated, I intend to offer an amendment to the budget that will restore the funding for the Sioux Falls Municipal Band for 2021. Following an affirmative vote, I intend to offer a resolution that will form a committee that will study the structure of the band and return a recommendation to the council prior to budget hearings in 2021. Councilor Kurt Sale. Mr. Mayor, a few comments of my own.
You bet.
Based on Councilor Sale's commitment to make this amendment at the appropriate time next week, I find the timing of this resolution in question. I also question the procedural appropriateness of dealing with this now. After all, in the current budget proposed, there isn't any funding available unless this council decides otherwise. Councilor Sale intends to do that next week. So at this particular point in time, this is a little bit like putting the cart before the horse. I will not be voting for this amendment.
All right, thank you.
Or this resolution, rather. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Other discussion, Council, on this? Councilor Selberg.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I believe Councilor Sale has been out in front of this topic for a number of weeks. I think something like this sounds good. It can score some political points, but I think the train left the station a bit where we've been discussing this type of thing for weeks, and I believe that it's going in that direction. I certainly appreciate the people that have come out and talked about this. I certainly appreciate the hundreds of emails, and I certainly hope people know out there, if they don't by now, that I don't think there's anybody on this council that does not want to restore this. And the idea is to do that, but then find ways to make it better as we go along. And that's been talked about for quite some time up till now. So I don't know that we need this to say that at this time. So just speaking to the folks out there again, where it might sound again, sometimes we have these things proposed, and if you say no to it, boy, there's a headline and we're against this. That's not the case at all. This has been a subject that's been at the forefront of everybody's conversation and minds, thanks to most of you out there who've reached out, and it will continue to be, and we will find a way to make it happen. But for this tonight, I will not be supporting it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor. Other discussion amongst council on this? All right, hearing none, let's take a vote on it, please.
Council members Nitzert?
No.
Selberg? Starr?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
No.
Jensen? Nope. Kiley?
No.
All right, that fails 5-2. We'll move on to item 31.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Neitzer, yes.
I am not an eligible council member for the next 3 items, therefore I need to step down from the dais for the remainder of the meeting. I will, however, remain in the room throughout these proceedings as city ordinance affords me due process and the right to be present in this matter that concerns me. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Councilor.
Item.
I'm going to turn to the city attorney as well first.
Yeah, Your Honor, or Mr. Mayor, I am.
Your Honor's
wow,
fine.
that was
See, I like it. Keep going.
Have my head in court. I'll be recusing myself in this matter. So Tom Freeberg, who we've contracted with out of Beersford, will be sitting in my chair and handling the matters here on out in this area.
Thanks, Stacy.
The next 3 agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tom, come on over to the hot seat, big man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Tom Greco, now we can read this into the record and we'll get started.
Item 31, set a date of public hearing on report of Board of Ethics pursuant to Section 35.058 of the Code of Ordinances for Thursday, September 10th, 2020 at 6 p.m. in Carnegie Town Hall, 235 West 10th Street.
Okay. Who is speaking this? Tom, are you going to speak to this to kind of kick it off for us?
I can.
All right.
As you know, the Board of Ethics sent a letter to a report to the council indicating that there was probable cause that a violation of the Code of Ethics had occurred, and that necessitated the council having a public hearing with respect to the allegations contained in the report provided by the Board of Ethics. The ordinance requires that public hearing be held within 30 days of the report coming to the council. The report was dated August 11th of this year. I got involved in this just last week after you approved our involvement. And as this council obviously knows, there was some back and forth with the Board of Ethics, resulting in their comeback to the council when you had questions about what was contained in their initial report. They came back to you and said they were not doing any clarifications. They stood by their original report, requiring this council to move forward then with a public hearing. The request here is for a public hearing to be held this Thursday, the 10th of September at 6 o'clock. That was a time that was discussed with counsel for Mr. Neitzer, counsel for the Board of Ethics. The complaining witness in this matter also has retained counsel. Everyone was available at that time. The idea was to have it before you in a time frame that would comply with the 30 days. There could be arguments made that the back and forth maybe extend that, but certainly in the interest of preserving due process for those involved, that this would be the appropriate time to have a hearing if the council chooses to do so at that time.
Great, thank you, Tom. All right, so we'll take any public input. Is there anyone here to speak on this item?
I want to say I support Greg Neitzer to the fullest, okay? But this is my thinking here. He did not go by himself. So why isn't there another complaint following his? You can make as many complaints as to the ethics board as you want. And I'm going to state, because it was in the newspapers and everywhere, that the mayor went with him. And if y'all all knew that there was an ethics violation, then y'all all need to be, then I need to start reporting all of y'all for ethics violations, because y'all received the email. So if y'all knew he broke the law, not a near one of y'all came forward. Not a near one of y'all came forward, put it against Greg Neitzer, and put it against the mayor. Why didn't you? This is a political attack. How it is a political attack is because nobody came forward and put one against the mayor. He didn't go by himself. That's why I say it's a political attack. If y'all truly knew that that was an ethics violation on a council member, then y'all should have rose up and not a citizen. Y'all shouldn't have got a citizen involved. Y'all should have put an ethics violation on not just him, but on Mayor Tinhaken. if there was an ethics violation. This is a crock of crap. It makes me so angry. Because if this was going on for years, then why didn't nobody for years put ethics on council members? I'm aggravated because of the simple fact that this was politically motivated because the mayor went with him and nobody stood up and made a complaint against the mayor. Do you know at the ethics board that you can make 50 million complaints from 50 million people? You don't have to have one pass through and another pass through following it. They went together. And not a near one of y'all stood up and said it was an ethics violation. Not a near one. But here we are supposed to be for the citizens. And we're supposed to do our due diligence. But not a near one of y'all, when y'all got that email, step forward and say, Greg and the mayor, and I'm just saying the mayor because he's been in the articles, newspaper articles, he went with Greg Neitzert. But say Greg Neitzert is being attacked. It's a sad situation. This is politicalness. This is a political. We're not going to wait until the mayor's election and let's go put an ethics against the mayor. Because I'm sure that's what's going to happen. We should have did it now. You should have did it when you filed against Greg Neitzert. You don't wait a year or two later. If they did do an ethics violation. If it was an ethics violation. This is sad. Because all of y'all should have did it. All of y'all should have did an ethics on him. And all of y'all should have recused yourselves. Except for maybe one council member. All of y'all. One council member is an attorney. She should have known how that works. For many years, she worked for the city. Should have known well. It doesn't make no sense that Greg Neitzert is getting attacked by an ethics and not the other party, if y'all want to be fair. So attacking Greg and bringing him through all this court stuff, and I guess wasting the taxpayers' money. I don't know if he got his own counsel or not, his own attorney or not on the city tax money. But if we're paying for this, we should have did it the right way. I hope and I pray that no other complaint comes up in a year when the mayor is going to be running for election. Because that's going to be dirty too. You don't do that. When stuff happens, you take care of it right then and there. You don't wait till the election time to do it.
Anyone else speak tonight on this? Please come forward.
Bruce Danielson. This isn't a political attack on any individual. This is a concerned citizen that's come forward having found that a member of this body violated the canons and ethics and ordinance of the city of Sioux Falls. It was very clear this individual took a trip to Frisco, Texas in November. It hasn't been a year ago, it hasn't been 2 years ago. It was at the time, if I understand the time frame correctly, was about 4 months before this happened, before the ethics violation was filed. Having put in ethics violations, complaints over the years before that body, this isn't something that you do lightly. It isn't something that you just jump on and do. You go in and you look at what is happening and what laws were violated, what ethics were violated, and you move forward. Some of them that I've put in have taken me a couple of months to get everything put together because we're citizens. I know John Cunningham a little bit. He's a citizen. I know some of you better than others. I know some in this room. I know people are always saying, why don't they ever do anything about that? Why don't they ever complain? Why don't they ever file charges? Why don't they ever take them to court? Well, that's not easy to do. And it takes a brave person to bring something from nowhere
with just the minimal amount of information that's available. So we have a council member who took a trip on somebody else's dime. We have others in this administration that took a trip on that same dime. We don't know the whole story. It's never been told to us. We want to know what that story is. We want to know if that member that's being accused of this actually did something wrong. This is a jury of his peers. And we need that laid out in here. We need to have both sides. We need to have John in here. We need to have all the lawyers in here. This is as close as the city has to a courtroom, is what you people are going to be doing. And you need to take that time and deliberate speed to figure out what's going on. If you need to defer this a few days so that everybody has a chance to be ready, then do it. This doesn't have to be done in a 30-day period. We have to get the process started. We watched the Board of Ethics go through several questionably legal executive sessions where they never actually closed out the executive session. We need to discuss how that process is done. We have a very weak process for this. This is the first time this has ever been done in the history of Sioux Falls. We need to do it right. So we have the NYSERD rule. This is what happens when somebody violates the canons, the ordinance, their oath of office. This is serious. This is not a game, this is not political, and it's not worth screaming about. We just need to get this done correctly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Please come forward, sir.
I'm David Zokaitis, and I think everybody just wants to know what's going on and how we can prevent it from happening in the future. But if you're going to try to figure out what's going on, then we need an unbiased jury and unbiased proceedings. But one of the problems that we have going into this is that the Board of Ethics says that this problem is common. The Ethics Board made some letter, and it's published in the proceedings of the City Council, and it said that this was a common experience to go on these third-party paid trips. But if it's a common experience, then recusing yourself from the discussion should also be a common experience. Because if people do this all the time and they go on these trips, then it will be in their best interest to try to have the outcome that nobody ever did anything wrong. So you've got a conflict of interest with your duties as council members versus your need for self-protection, and that should be resolved by recusing yourself. But if it's a common problem, there might not be anybody left on the council. So good luck trying to figure out how to solve that.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else to speak on this tonight? All right, hearing none, what we'll do is let's get a motion on the floor and then we can move to discussion on it.
Move approval.
All right, motion by Selberg, seconded by Kiley to set a special meeting for the 10th, or should I say a public hearing for the 10th at 6. All right, discussion, councilors, on this item? Councilor
Mr. Mayor,
Kiley?
I'd just like a point of clarification, and if our attorney could answer that. I understand on this item, we're just merely setting the date. We're not actually conducting a hearing here this evening, but rather setting the date.
That's correct. That's just the council is obligated to set the hearing date and conduct a hearing within 30 days of receipt of the report.
And we should limit discussion on this item to that point.
On this particular one, that's the council's wishes, yes.
Thank you.
That would be correct. Okay, any discussion on that to set the date for then? All right, I'm hearing none, so let's take a vote on that item.
Council members Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
All right, that item passes 6-0. We'll move on to item 32.
Item 32, subpoenas for the public hearing on report of Board of Ethics held pursuant to Section 35.058 of the Code of Ordinances.
And Tom, just for point of clarification, is there public input at these next two items as well?
Yes, Mayor.
There is, all right. So is there anyone from the public to speak on item 32? All right, hearing none. I guess what we'll do is, yeah, I mean, maybe Tom, I'll have you kind of speak to this and then we'll decide how we'll take the action on this.
I don't know if Mr. Summers is here.
Okay, come forward. Good evening.
Chris Summers, attorney from Redstone Law Firm and personal counsel for Counselor Neitzer.
Okay, Chris, thanks for being here.
And I do have a number of things, however, I do want to follow the agenda tonight, so I will limit this to item 32 on the subpoenas. And additionally, before going into any additional matters and any additional votes, I think it's very important to address one major issue that is outstanding that the council will have to address. And if at any point the council wishes for me to defer this to the procedural section on item 33, then by all means let me know and I will limit it to that section. However, there is an issue of disqualification of certain members of this council due to a conflict of interest and personal involvement and potentially being called as witnesses that will be testifying at the hearing. Now, Counselor Neitzer has already requested informally that these two council members...
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. This isn't in order at this point.
I'm overruled. This is very relevant to the item 32. Please continue.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to appeal the decision of the chair.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second, Brecky.
Okay, let's take a vote on that to overrule this.
Council members Selberg?
No.
Starr?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
No.
Jensen?
No.
Kiley?
No.
Okay, it fails 4-2. Please continue, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The complainant, John Cunningham, in this matter did not act alone. You must consider the timing that the complaint was filed, not just the complaint that is before the council now, but the complaint that was previously dismissed. There have been two complaints filed by the complainant, 20A and 20B. Now, as I was saying, prior to today, Counselor Neitzer requested that Counselors Starr and Brecky recuse themselves from any participation in these proceedings. We have not received any indication that they are willing to do so voluntarily. And therefore, it is important to note what their involvement was, why they might be called to testify, and to make an objection that if this hearing is to continue on with their participation, that Counselor Neitzer will object to their participation. The timing of this is very suspect. Counselors Brecky and Starr publicly endorsed Counselor Neitzer's opponent for re-election this year. Now, the trip that Counselor Neitzer has admitted to taking that he informed this council of while he was attending it on October 17th. He informed the council that he was there October 16th through 18th of 2019. 147 days later, the complainant filed complaint 20A. 33 days before the Sioux Falls city election was to happen. Now, of course, it was postponed in that time period. After it was postponed, complaint 20A was dismissed on procedural grounds by the Board of Ethics. The complainant made that complaint public, but regardless, refiled another complaint, complaint 20B, on May 18th, 2020. We are now 213 days after Counselor Neitzer's trip, 18 days before the postponed election on June 2nd, 2020. When that complaint 20A was dismissed on April 30th, Counselor Brecky appeared before the Board of Ethics to give her own opinion on what had happened. And she affirmatively stated, now it's important to note, Counselor Brecky is an attorney, and she is a former city attorney. She has now filed a request for an advisory opinion with the board in which she admits that she spoke to the complainant, John Cunningham, about sufficiency, jurisdiction, probable cause, burden of proof, subpoena of witnesses, supplemental filings. These aren't words that a counselor uses with a concerned citizen. These are words, terms that an attorney uses when advising a client. Counselor Brecky created an attorney-client relationship with John Cunningham. She knew what Complaint 20A was about, what Complaint 20B was going to be about. She knew that Counselor Neitzer was in Frisco, Texas for a public policy conference in October of 2019. She knew exactly what this was. This was a political attack on Counselor Neitzer while he was up for re-election in the 2020 election in Sioux Falls, hoping to help or to damage Counselor Neitzer's reputation and help boost her his publicly endorsed opponent by Counselor
Point of order.
Starr.
I'm not on trial here, and counsel's testifying.
I believe he's getting to the point of who will be subpoenaed and why as a result of all this backstory. Is that correct, Mr.
And
Summers?
that's
That is
fine.
correct.
Let's
That's
talk
cor-
about
that's
the
correct.
subpoenas. You've raised your issue.
He's getting there.
It's important to note, as a little bit of a preliminary hearing conference on what was going to happen at this hearing, if the Board of Ethics ends up going beyond its report into our own arguments on the nature of this complaint, the nature of the complainant and why it was filed, goes to who orchestrated it, who coordinated it, and therefore we will be requesting that this council subpoena Counselor Brecky, in addition Counselor Starr, who unfortunately I cannot speak totally before this council due to the fact that matters have not been released yet, but it is important to note that Counselor Starr was present at several Board of Ethics hearings and was observed speaking with Mr. Cunningham out in City Hall after either the board went into executive session or concluded and adjourned for the day. Therefore, there is reason to believe that Counselor Starr was also involved with Mr. Cunningham filing his complaints, and therefore we intend to subpoena Counselor Starr, Counselor Brecky, and anyone else who was encouraging the complainant, advising him, and assisting him in bringing this attack on Counselor Neitzer. I won't belabor you much longer, but there are standards for disqualification of city officials. First can be found in SDCL 6-1-21, which provides that a city official can be disqualified from voting on a matter if they can be shown prejudice or the unacceptable risk of bias. Now, the South Dakota Supreme Court has said that does not require an actual showing of bias, only an unacceptable risk of bias. Anything that would tempt the official.
Mr. Mayor, this point of order, he's testifying again and attacking my personal reputation by pointing out how I should recuse myself, not how he should subpoena me to testify.
I'll continue to allow you to go, Mr. Summers. Go
I'd
ahead.
move to appeal the decision of the chair.
Okay, go ahead. Do you have a second for that? All right, no second. Go ahead, Mr. Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Because they will be called as witnesses, they should not sit in judgment of Counselor Neitzer when they were personally involved in their own individual capacities. Now, when this comes up for discussion, by all means, the council can discuss the propriety of what we are requesting today. And there are means by which I would point the council to SDCL 6-1-17-2, which provides that no official may participate in discussing or vote on an issue if at least 2/3 of the governing body votes that an official has an identifiable conflict of interest that should prohibit such official from voting on a specific matter. Now, I'm not sure, I do not believe that Sioux Falls City Ordinance provides specific procedures to have this body disqualify one of its own members. However, state law does provide that. Finally, as far as subpoenaing evidence and witnesses, I would note that the Sioux Falls Board of Ethics Rules of Procedure require the board to provide the accused with a written report of investigation with copies of any documents or other tangible evidence reviewed during the investigation. Now, we did not receive any documents from the board other than its written report. There were documents introduced to the report. Those have not been made public by the Board of Ethics, and I will leave that up to the board. But I would request that the City Council subpoena those documents, not only as for full, so that the City Council can be fully informed of what was discussed, but also just as a matter of economic efficiency and judicial efficiency, that this board will be, or the council will be aware of what the board considered when it wrote its report. Our only alternative to receiving those documents would be to question a member of the Board of Ethics, which quite frankly is probably not a proper procedure to question an individual member of a Sioux Falls board when the board acted as a whole body. Therefore, we would request that the City Council subpoena the documents reviewed by the Board of Ethics in any investigation that it conducted and in reviewing complaints 20A and 20B and in writing its written report that was submitted to the City Council. That's all I have on subpoenas. Thank you.
All right, so can I just recap this back to you, Mr. Summers, that you intend to submit subpoenas to Councilor Brecky, Councilor Starr, and the documents reviewed by the Board of Ethics in writing to create its written statement of support?
Mr. Mayor, just so we're clear, the ordinance rests the power of issuing subpoenas with the council. So
that's his recommendation.
That's his request of the council to issue subpoenas.
So then the council would make a motion on what they'd like to see subpoenaed and would vote on that.
Because the ordinance gives the councils to receive evidence from the council member alleged to have committed the wrongdoing and from the person making a complaint against the official employee of unethical conduct or any other person as the council deems necessary. And then it says the City Council may request and if necessary subpoena witnesses, books, records, or any documents which may relate to the allegations or complaint.
Got it.
So it's the council that would issue the subpoenas. Okay. And that's the request that you're making.
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mr. Summers here? Because the action that we would take as a body is someone will make a motion on what they would like to see subpoenaed for the special meeting that was just approved for the 10th.
I just have a point of clarification, probably for our attorney. Do we make those motions based on each individual item? So for example, if we intend to subpoena Councilor Greg Neitzert, that would be one motion. If we intend to subpoena Cunningham, we subpoena him. If we intend to have subpoena documents, we do. How is that done? Because
that would be done on an individual basis. In talking with the attorneys for Mr. Neitzert and Mr. Cunningham, they both intend to appear voluntarily. They had indicated that they would not require subpoenas from this body to attend the special hearing.
And
public hearing.
Thank you for that clarification. And while I appreciate that, I don't know if, obviously we're having a public discussion right now that if it makes sense for this body to say, no, we want to just make sure we have a whole list to ensure that someone does show up and not have a change of heart, so to speak. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, we'd like to make a motion on on a subpoena item for this council? Did you wish to speak, sir? Okay. Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Marshawn Torno from Torno Law Office. I, in fact, in my office represent John Cunningham, who is the complainant in this matter, and I can say that because Mr. Neitzer has indicated both privately and publicly that he wishes to make all of the proceedings public, and therefore Mr. Cunningham is and was and is the complainant in these matters. As to what opposing counsel just said, much of what he laid out didn't relate to the subpoenas, related to his concerns. The first thing I would point out, I guess by way of response, is any reference that he made to SDCL Chapter 6 is inapplicable because under state law, under SDCL Chapter 6, you're not a local government that's covered by that chapter because it talks about local governments that are municipalities. Of course, you're a city chartered governmental entity, and under Chapter 6, the only way that that would apply to a chartered entity is under SDCL 6.1.12, I believe references only chartered entities would be involved as to complaints under 6.1.13. So certainly not applicable to the statute that he references. As a chartered governmental entity, of course, you are not a municipality, not subject to those rules, so that statute is completely inapplicable. As to the issuance of subpoenas, I would tell you that on behalf of the complainant, we would seek a subpoena of Mr. Greco for his being the keeper of the records, if you will, of the 2018 travel policy and the requirements under the 2018 travel policy and procedures by this council. So we would make that request, but we would also say that one of the problems with this hearing, given that where we're at today, is a timeliness issue. And I can tell you, any subpoenas that this body issues are not going to be timely, being issued on, just before midnight on the Tuesday before the Thursday hearing. Any case will tell you that there has to be a reasonable opportunity to respond to those subpoenas. Typically, it would be 5 to 7 days. So you can certainly issue them, but they're going to be subject to being challenged as not being timely. As to this issue about conflict of interest, the only part I would agree with counsel is there is, in a quasi-judicial proceeding, there is the concern for the unacceptable risk of bias. I don't know the situation as to Council Brecky or Councilmember Starr, but I would say each of you, especially those that maybe work on the travel policies and procedures, and I don't know if that's Councilmember Erickson or Selberg or who, but you would each have to look at whether you have the unacceptable risk of bias from hearing this matter on Thursday. So it's not something that I can see as being laid out specifically to the two council members that were mentioned. It would be equally applicable if you're going to look at that standard, which you do need to look at. Who has the unacceptable risk of bias? And that should be something that you all look at. I'll save the remainder of my comments for the next item, which I think is really the crux of why we're here as to the protocol and the concerns that Mr. Cunningham has, rightfully so under the ordinances that were adopted.
All right, thank you. Okay. No, there's no public input. Are you coming up here? We're done with that. We did public input. We did that already. Yep. All right. So does anyone want to put a motion on the floor? I believe, if I'm understanding correctly, Tom, we take a motion on something we want to subpoena, we vote on it, and we just tick it off like that?
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Starr.
Yes, thank you. I have a question for Councilor Freeberg. Mr. Attorney, how do we subpoena? Do we have the ability to subpoena documents that were only relayed in executive session? because the ethics board met primarily in executive session. The only part that, because I did attend the hearings, that was brought forward were documents. The only document was the document that they provided to the council. So all of their research and things were done in executive session.
In the preliminary discussions that we had, counsel for the Board of Ethics indicated that they would resist any subpoena of their records. And I know that's a request that has been made by Councilman Neitzert, but that was the preliminary indication. I know they're here and could potentially address that, but they did indicate that it was their belief that those would remain confidential documents because of the timing of the waiver of confidentiality. That those were all received prior to any waiver, and as a result, they did not have any documents that were filed subsequent to the waiver of confidentiality, and therefore they would resist the subpoena.
Thank you.
I don't want to speak for you, Mr. Peterson, but
can I ask a question that might need to be addressed with this as well? Just piggybacking off the question of confidentiality with those, isn't that due process? Aren't we asking for due process? How did you get to your decision? And that's the due process component that lies within that. That wouldn't we want to have that information to be able to make the best decision that we can by having all the documentation? I mean, it's real hard to make a decision without seeing all the facts.
I'm Jack Marsh. I'm the chairman of the Sioux Falls Board of Ethics. And because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, we are going to defer our presentation to our special counsel, who's Alan Peterson.
Hi, I am Alan Peterson with Lynn Jackson Law Firm here in Sioux Falls. I've been acting as special counsel. On behalf of the Board of Ethics, our view of this hearing will consist of two witnesses, the complainant and the respondent. Both have agreed to appear without subpoenas, but we're certainly fine with you issuing a subpoena to ensure their presence. In terms of the documentation, we have quite frankly been struggling with how it is protected. We would be glad to review your subpoena, and I think we are at a position where we will likely honor it at this point. We believe there are some confidentiality issues, but with the City Council's exercise of its power to subpoena the document, we're at least, I think we're comfortable that we can present it. So
that's news to me, so I apologize for my earlier comments.
When you give us a subpoena, we will formalize our position.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about right now?
Councilor Starr, go ahead.
Sorry, I turned the microphone off. How long would it require for the board to meet, and how much time would you need? Mr. Torno brought up the timeliness issue. Would the board be able to meet within 24 hours and be back with an answer?
I really can't answer that. I can tell you that when the board, or when the council sent the letter of remand, we were able to get together within, I believe it was 3 days. It is a council of 5 people, and I think 24 hours is probably unlikely.
Mr. Mayor, and I don't know, this procedure is new to everybody. It's never happened in the city of Sioux Falls before. My big concern is the 30 days, that is an issue. A potential resolution to that could be to have the board present its case in 2 days, and the council still has the ability to subpoena witnesses and documents if they're not satisfied that they've got a full story before them, and they could continue the hearing or suspend the hearing at that point to issue those subpoenas that they felt were then necessary under their investigative powers and here, and at least go through that part of the process to have the board present its case to the council. It would necessitate, I think, a second meeting, but that may resolve a lot of these issues that are unknowns, because the Board of Ethics does have the obligation to present its case to the council and bears the burden of proof on behalf of the city. The respondent and the complainant are both obligated to appear before the city council in sitting in its capacity to rule on the report that's submitted by the Board of Ethics. So that's just a potential resolution that may resolve itself as a result of the hearing. There's a lot of speculation going on as to what you may or may not hear, and maybe that would resolve that for you.
Come on up, Sean. Do you have a comment?
Thank you again. Sean Torno on behalf of Torno Law Office. Just to chime in on that issue, and we've shared this in some email exchanges, and I know Tom is new to this. I'm relatively new to this as well. I think a fair argument can be made. I mean, I think it's clear from the board 2 days is not enough, and I don't think it's reasonable for the other subpoenas as well, including our own request. I think it's fair under the ordinances that the letter dated August 11th, 2020 was actually received by this body on August 18th, as I understand it, from talking to City Attorney's Office that handles the Board of Ethics. The other alternative, instead of this body coming back twice, would be you could fit right within the 30 days if you had the hearing on September 17th, a week from now. That would give a reasonable time period for the subpoenas to issue. I didn't address the previous item because I wanted to see how it would play out, but I think when you get to these subpoenas, knowing now that we have probably, 4 subpoenas that we're talking about, that really September 17th would be able to answer all of those issues and give the council the requisite time to subpoena the documents, and I think it's important to remember to receive them and to take full review of them and the scope of those documents. So that would be my proverbial 2 cents worth.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Erickson, go ahead.
I just want to make sure Mr. Torno realizes that I received the letter on August 11th. I just pulled it up in my email, and while it wasn't printed, we did receive the email via email.
Right, but as a body, you received it, as I understand it, as an item on your agenda on the 18th. That's what I was informed. Maybe I'm...
Right, on the agenda, but we all did get the email on August 11th. So we did have the email from the Board of Ethics.
I understand. What I'm saying is...
No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying I had it.
Got it.
Thank you.
Councilor Brackey.
Questions for legal counsel. Who will be making determinations regarding relevancy? The comments made by counsel, even if true, and I'm not saying they are, I might be willing to voluntarily submit myself to testimony. I've also made a request to the Ethics Board to determine whether or not I have a conflict of interest under our city ordinances, because I was, receiving all these ex-parte communications, from the complainant. But the relevancy question really goes to the heart of whether or not I should be brought into this, because, this conspiracy theory thing, even if true, it has no relevance to this case because the board has already found that it's not a frivolous violation and that there was probable cause. So, yes, I did endorse someone, so did everybody else on the council, and I followed the parameters set by the Board of Ethics in an advisory opinion that I had. Again, I'm not saying it's true, because I might be more than willing to just go ahead, ask me all the questions you want. A lot of the things that he said, sound bad, but they're out of context. And put in context, there was no conspiracy. But even if there was, what does that have to do with Greg Neitzert taking a trip and whether or not that was appropriate under our travel policies and our ordinance? I mean, we're all political creatures, but, this is just a smokescreen, and who's going to make those determinations as to relevancy?
And I think that would be, the mayor's going to be conducting the hearing, and I would advise him if there's objections, he could consult with me on those things.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Councilor?
One of them.
Is your mic on? Just make
I'm
sure.
sorry. I apologize.
We got it. All right. Okay, other comments? Counselor Kiley?
Thank you. The reason I did not agree with the request for overrule when we were discussing the question about members recusing themselves was because the relevancy is we're going to be sitting as a body listening during this hearing and making a decision and rendering a decision. You know, and so whether it was appropriate to do it here on item 32 or item 33, I guess could be argued, but then if in item 32, if we're making decisions as a body, I come back to that question, whether or not that should be considered, because individuals that have been questioned here this evening would be casting a vote on who's going to be subpoenaed and who's not going to be subpoenaed. So to me, that's relevant, whether there was bias or prejudice or unacceptable risk of bias. Tom, can you help me out? Or
sure.
comment on that?
That's part of the difficulty, the way this ordinance is drafted and set up, only gives the council the ability to issue the subpoenas. When you're sitting in a quasi-judicial setting, as you are in this case, it's going to be up to the individual counselors to determine whether they've got a bias or prejudice that would prevent them from being fair arbiters of the issues put before them. And that, you know, that's going to lie with each and every one of you, I guess, to make that determination if you feel that you put yourself in a position where you can't, or you've involuntarily been in a position where you can't be a disinterested or unbiased arbiter of what's presented to you from the Board of Ethics.
It's not this body that's going to make that determination.
I think it's going to rest with the individual council members who are deemed the eligible council members charged with conducting the hearing.
Thank you.
Again,
Councilor Erickson, go
I'll
ahead.
pose the question, is anyone other than Councilor Neitzer planning on recusing themselves? Because that lists then who can or cannot be subpoenaed. If you plan to recuse yourself, I think the intent based on what was said was that. So if nobody plans on recusing themselves, then I think we have the answer.
Okay. Okay. Do we want to make any motions for any subpoenas to be issued for the hearing?
And again, the option lies, I guess, with the council to say we can hold that in abeyance until we hear from the Board of Ethics and they present the case and the response from Mr. Neitzer. If there's still witnesses, documents, or items that you want to have subpoenaed, you could do so. But that's going to require us coming back a second time.
Okay. All right. I'm not hearing any motions. Councilor Brecky?
I would just make one other comment. Again, since, I am being attacked and I'm not interested in hiding anything. I'm not interested in being where I'm not supposed to be. Again, I've submitted a request for an advisory opinion to the Ethics Board today to ask them whether or not I do have a conflict of interest to help me make that decision about whether or not I should recuse myself, whether or not, I have a bias or not. Because I was advised also that I have that personal decision to make. Do I have an undue bias? We all do. Personally, I would like to see the thing start, because I'm in the blind as well. Apparently, though I'm hearing things, I heard him at the last ethics board meeting, that, you know, there was testimony regarding my trip to National League of Cities, you know, and so I'm in the dark. I don't know how big a role I've played in all of this, supposedly, you know, based on the hearings, the confidential hearings that have taken place. And I don't want to do anything unethical or irresponsible. On the other hand, if I haven't done anything that creates a conflict of interest for me, then like everyone, I will want to do my responsibility, you know, be responsible, be a responsible member of this board.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you, Tom. You've been kind of thrown in the middle of all of this. And I heard you loud and clear that you had stated to us, it is our responsibility if you want to recuse yourself. It is up to us if I feel I acted improper. And so each and every one of us have that responsibility, and not having somebody else make that decision for us is if I feel that, then I should recuse myself. I don't. I'm going to refer to that letter. And in the letter, and then I'm going to make a motion. In the letter from Jack Marsh, Chair, on behalf of the Sioux Falls Board of Ethics, several times in parentheses, it says common practice, city officers, S, or city officials, S, common practice, common practice. It says it all over that as well. And so it's clearly not just about one specific person. This complaint is about one specific person. And so I thank Mr. Cunningham and Mr. Neinzert for saying that they will show up. I'm going to make a motion to subpoena John Cunningham for our meeting on Thursday,
September 10th.
September 10th.
I second that motion.
All right. Motion by Erickson, seconded by Kylie on that. Any discussion on that?
Can I just,
You sure can.
did you want to include any request that he provide any documentation as a part of that subpoena?
I think we can ask for it when we're there. Correct?
Well, the subpoena would be what we refer to as a subpoena ducis tecum, which requires him to produce the documents that the council would request as a part of the subpoena process. And if that's if you haven't seen the complaint, if you subpoena
Right.
that.
I will make my third motion will be asking for the information from the Board of Ethics, just so everyone is aware. My next motion will be to subpoena Councilor Neinzert. The next motion will be to ask for all the information in the name of due process and transparency, because confidentiality has been waived, that I would ask for that information. Okay. So those will be my three motions back to back to back.
All right. All right, let's take a vote on the Councilor Kelly, you have a discussion before you vote?
Point of clarification, I mean, is it too broad to ask Mr. Cunningham to bring any relevant information to this case, whether it be correspondence with any member of this council or the accused or otherwise?
I mean, I think there becomes a point of relevance, I guess. Your hearing's going to be about a single issue and a single alleged violation. So, that's my suggestion. Would be to get what the board has, if the three motions that Councilor Erickson has spoken of.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and take a vote on this subpoena motion, please.
Councilmember Selberg. Yes. Starr.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that one passes 6-0.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor
Take a
Erickson.
motion to subpoena Councilor Greg Neinzert.
Second.
All right, a motion by Erickson, seconded by Councilor Kylie on that. Discussion on that one? All right, let's take a vote there.
Councilmember Selberg. Yes. Starr.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-0.
Mr. Mayor, I may need some help with the language of this one from our attorney, but I would like to subpoena any and all documents relating to this case or the previous case that was filed and waived confidentiality from the Ethics Board for Thursday, September 10th.
Any and all documents submitted to the board with regard to both those complaints?
Yes, sir.
All right. Have a second for that?
Second.
Really, my intent is how can you make a decision without knowing the research that took place and affording due process? I think it's important to know that and to know what research was looked at, who else's trips were looked at, because it's very clear it's a common practice. There were several officers and officials that were discussed, and so I think it's important that all of those things be attached to this.
All right. Thank you, Counselor. So we got a motion, a second on that. Any other discussion on that one? Counselor Starr?
Yes, thank you. I totally agree with you, Counselor Erickson. My concern continues to be the research that they did behind closed doors. When does that become public? I don't know of when the shield is broken from things that happen in executive session. And I guess that's maybe more of a question for the attorney.
And if I can piggyback on that is, doesn't a subpoena override the confidentiality of executive session when the other accused said they waived their confidentiality?
That's going to be something that the board will have to wrestle with when they see the subpoena, I presume. If they object, then that's something that will have to be addressed. But
thank you.
I don't mean to be playing with the board or anything, but yeah, show me your subpoena. I expect we will honor it. I have no problem with providing the documents that were used by the board. I think that's going to be an issue that dissolves.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other discussion on this motion? Counselor Kiley?
I just think having that additional information would be helpful. Unfortunately, we had requested some clarifications that were denied. We were told to go back and read it again. Despite the fact that they stated in their findings that there was probable cause, which would lead to believe there would have to be a hearing held against the accused, but the only place I could find that they recommended a hearing was to clarify policies concerning travel. So I guess if I could get documents that would help clarify that. I mean, it was abundantly clear to me that does not warrant individual sanctions. Abundantly clear that we review the policies. That wasn't an issue. My question had to my questions that I had submitted, the two that I had submitted, had to do with the fact that at the time the accused had not waived confidentiality, and how and the fact that they found probable cause, and yet they found probable cause would indicate that you should hear a hearing. So anyway, that was the basis for my questions. Still have that same confusion as I think this entire body did. So would like to have answers to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Erickson? Tom, can you turn your mic? Is your mic on?
Nope, it's not. Thank you. Our attorney, Tom. I know the body of the Board of Ethics operates as a body.
Correct.
But there's so much uncertainty from this council based on a lot of the questions that we as a body had 2 different letters submitted. Is it an option? I guess this is out of order. I'm sorry, we should vote on this, but my question kind of relates to this is, can we also subpoena Board of Ethics, either having the attorney here to answer the questions for us since he represents them, or can we have members of the ethics hearing here, or do they have to show up as a body? Because there's clarification that we're messing with someone's life.
Well, if I can, the struggle in that is that the Board of Ethics is a body and is the body charged with presenting the case to this council. So I don't see that it would be an appropriate method of investigation to ask individual board members or their attorney questions. They are the body charged with presenting the case to the council and bearing the burden on behalf of the city.
And I really think that having the supporting documents, the due process behind it, I think is very, very important, and most likely will answer those questions that led up to it. But it was confidential at the time, and so none of that stuff could be released until confidentiality was waived.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on the motion on the floor, Councilor Starr?
Thank you. Just to follow up with that, sir, is confidentiality waived once probable cause was found by the Ethics Board, or does it need to be waived? I think that's a question in the ordinance that's unclear.
It's among many questions, in my opinion, that are unclear with the ordinance, but the ordinance refers to documents submitted subsequent to the waiver of confidentiality are not confidential, but before that time, they're deemed confidential, and I think that's the position that the board has struggled with as part of this process as well. That the waiver was not retroactive to the beginning of the process before the Ethics Board.
No, I'm trying to think my way through it, because part of me says that once the idea of this process in ordinance is to protect an individual against an unfounded charge, and once that the board had found that this wasn't, that they had found probable cause and that they had found, they made their recommendation that ordinance tells them to do, and that it wasn't a frivolous claim, then to me, then the confidentiality is waived at that point once they make the report to the council.
And again, the ordinance says upon election of the accused, any subsequent filings and proceedings with the board become public. And I think that's the language they've struggled with, is saying these were not subsequent to, these came in advance of any waiver by Councilman Neisert of the confidentiality. So it's the language within the ordinance that causes the pause on behalf of the Board of Ethics, as I understand it. So,
any other discussion on this one? All right, let's vote on this motion, please.
Councilmember Selberg. Yes. Starr.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-0. Other motions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Erickson.
Thanks. Can we, during the hearing, request to subpoena more, or even having questions for folks?
Yes, and I think you could say that you don't, based upon the presentation from the Board of Ethics, the response from the accused, and the testimony of Mr. Cunningham, that you don't have enough information, you want more. I think the board would be, council would have the opportunity then to suspend the hearing, for lack of a better word, continue to another date to gather the additional information you think is necessary to render a decision.
So what happens, because it was requested by one of the attorneys requesting that others be subpoenaed. What if we start the hearing? So what if we're done subpoenaing right now, and then we start the hearing, but then we want to question or subpoena others? Can that be done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there other motions to be made on this item? All right, if there's not, we'll move on to our next item then.
Item 33, establish protocols for the public hearing on report of Board of Ethics held pursuant to section 35.058 of the Code of Ordinances.
All right, Tom, you want to take the floor on this one as well?
Sure. Again, the attorneys, Mr. Marsh was also a participant in the phone conference last week about some of the, trying to establish some procedures. The ordinance sets forth that the Board of Ethics is charged with presenting their report and any witnesses in support thereof to the council. The accused, Mr. Neisert's given the opportunity to fully participate in the hearing process, and one of the issues is the ability of Mr. Cunningham. Has made a request through his attorney that he be allowed to participate as a by questioning witnesses and essentially becoming a party to the proceedings. I've shared with counsel for the board, for Mr. Neitzert and for Mr. Cunningham, that my interpretation of the ordinance would not permit that, that the Board of Ethics is the, for lack of a better word, the prosecutor in the case. Mr. Neitzert's got his rights to respond as the accused, and that doesn't elevate the complaining witness to a party status. And so I think for purposes of clarification, that my recommendation is that that be the manner in which you proceed on that particular issue. I know that Mr. Torno disagrees with me. We've talked briefly about that this afternoon. But that is my recommendation, that would be the manner in which the hearing would proceed, would be through the witnesses presented by the board, by Mr. Neitzert, and obviously Mr. Cunningham, someone that the board intends to call, and that's the obligation of the council, is to hear from the complaining party and from the accused, are both required to be there. If there's other witnesses that are called, that would be up to either the board or Mr. Neitzert if he had other witnesses. So again, the participation that Mr. Torno's requested to be involved by being able to cross-examine or examine witnesses on behalf of the complaining party. It's my position that or my recommendation that that's not permitted under the ordinance, that the obligation and the duty to present the case rests with the Board of Ethics.
Okay.
And not the complainant.
Okay. So on this item, what's the action item from this item? What would you recommend? Are we making a motion on how the hearing will be held? I'm unclear on that.
Yeah, we could.
1 sec, Mr. Torno. We got to take public input as well first.
Okay, that could be the action to clarify that point, because there's nothing in the ordinance that permits that, in my opinion.
Okay.
But I know the request has been made, and there's a couple other issues that have been raised by Mr. Torno that could be addressed separately. But
okay. So what we could hear tonight is if Mr. Torno has requests, a motion could be made on this council to potentially approve those, and we could vote on those.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this topic?
Arshawn Torno again on behalf of Torno Law Office. And to be clear, I didn't make a request to appear for Mr. Cunningham. He's my client. To be clear, under the ordinance 35058 sub F clearly provides, and with all due respect to Mr. Freeberg, he's just wrong. And if you want to look for legislative history as to how this ordinance was drafted, I was a drafter. I put this together. This was intended to be a three-way, transparent public hearing. I've heard that from what the council wants. You want to be fully transparent. That's what's intended, that's what's written, and it cannot be ignored within the ordinance. 35.058 F6 would have to be ignored if you took, and again with all due respect to Mr. Freeberg, we agree to disagree. It says that the council shall take evidence. Doesn't say it shall take testimony from the complainant. It says it shall take evidence from the complainant. It was written that way intentionally. If you look at sub F, it talks about the Board of Ethics presenting evidence and witnesses in support of its report. It doesn't limit what the complainant can bring before this body. As has been pointed out, the complainant brought this, it's been made public. He has a right under the ordinance to put his information, his evidence in front of you. So again, to be crystal clear, it's not a request. We're asking you to comply with the ordinance. What's very important for the council to remember is that your decision here is subject to judicial review. My client has every intention of seeking judicial review if it goes the way this appears. You can shake your head no, but that's what the ordinance provides, Mr. Councilmember Jensen, Councilmember Erickson. That's what it provides. And what you should be aware of, and I suspect council will inform you of, is that the judicial review provided is that of a writ of certiorari. And a writ of certiorari provides that the reviewing court is to determine if you complied with your ordinance, if you did what was required. You can't get around sub 6. I know you want to. I know you don't want to hear from the complainant, because here's the problem. The Board of Ethics, in presenting evidence, I don't know what they intend to do. I know they said they'd call my client. They could ask him one question and say they have no further questions. That's not receiving evidence from the complainant. That's receiving testimony, which they're entitled to do, but he has a right, if you want to have a fully transparent process, to be a part of the process. And what might be most troubling here is that for Mr. Neitzer's counsel, that's who threw out in an exchange of emails that the Board of Ethics is really the prosecutor. That's a falsity. The Board of Ethics is here simply to present in a civil manner, in a civil case, what their report says. You folks, as a body, are the determiner of facts, evidence, and the law. And you ultimately are to enter an order. So to say that they're the prosecutor and that somehow Mr. Neitzer is a defendant is not accurate. He's a party, and he has a right to have his own counsel. That's provided for in the ordinance. You know, if you're going to ignore parts of the ordinance, then maybe you say Mr. Neitzer can't have counsel. But you can't do that because it's in the ordinance. So just as that's allowed for, Mr. Cunningham has a right to present his evidence. Again, as I told Mr. Freeberg when we talked and we agreed to disagree, if sub 6 said that this body shall receive testimony, then we would say Mr. Freeberg is right in his advice. But it doesn't say that. It says evidence, and part of the evidence that we talked about is the 2018 travel policy, which is really at the crux of this matter. And I didn't hear a subpoena issued for that as was requested. But that having been said, ultimately it's up to you, the council, whether you're going to follow the ordinance or not. It is true, this is the first time this, under the ethics canons and ordinances and the Board of Ethics as a body, I served 16 years with the city. We never got to this level. But now that we're here, you need to do it the right way. And the right way is to have that fully transparent hearing, allowing for the board to enter any testimony in support of their report, Mr. Neitzer to put on evidence, which is required. Again, the city council shall receive that evidence from both Mr. Neitzer and from Mr. Cunningham. So with that, we just want to make sure our position is clear, and we'll make that point at the hearing. That is one other thing I guess I want to point out. I know there's been discussion about a meeting taking place on Thursday. There is no meeting. There's a hearing taking place. And that has its own ramifications that I'm sure council is going to tell you about as well.
Chris Summers, personal counsel for Councilor Neitzer. I want to address what Mr. Torno has brought before the council as far as his client, Mr. Cunningham's status as a party in the proceedings before this council that are set for this Thursday. Now, I fully agree, and Councilor Neitzer fully agrees with Tom Freeberg and his recommendation for the council. And with all due respect to Mr. Torno, although I understand that he contributed to the drafting of these ordinances, he is not the city council. And the intent of a drafter can differ from any individual intent of a city council member when an ordinance is enacted. And that's a crucial point when a court interprets statutes, is that the intent of an individual legislator, the intent of an individual council member should not be used to determine the interpretation of a statute, an ordinance, or any law. Second, Ordinance 53.058, subparagraph F, is clear and unambiguous. Subsection 3 provides that the Board of Ethics, its chairperson or its designee, presents evidence and questions witnesses in support of the report. That is what is before this council. The Board of Ethics' report. Subsection 2 provides the accused, Counselor Neatsert, has distinct rights. He has a right to counsel at his own expense, a right to a fair hearing, a right to call witnesses, and a right to present evidence. If the intent of this ordinance was to make a, quote, three-way proceeding, then the ordinance would have said so. But there is no language in the ordinance allowing such similar rights to the complainant. Under subsection 6 of 35.058, John Cunningham is nothing more than a witness that this council will hear evidence from. If Mr. Torno's arguments were taken literally, then that means that any person this council deemed necessary as part of these proceedings would be elevated to a party status. I would read the full subsection. The city council shall receive evidence from the city council member alleged to have committed wrongdoing and from the person making a complaint against the official or employee of unethical conduct or behavior, or any other person as the city council deems necessary. So if shall take evidence or shall receive evidence means that they're a party, then that means anyone that this council deems necessary to be a witness is a party. That is not how these hearings are supposed to work. That is not how the ordinance is drafted. And I would compare that with Board of Ethics procedures. For example, when this council reaches its final decision, it files that decision with the city clerk and Counselor Neisert as the accused. There is nothing in there that says it also is served on the complainant. Compare that with the Board of Ethics procedures, which specifically provide that the complainant receives notice of decisions made on the complaint, of hearings on the complaint, along with the accused. And there's a reason for that. The complainant's role is different at this stage than it is at the Board of Ethics. When the complainant files a complaint to the Board of Ethics against a elected official or a city officer, the board's role is to determine whether that complaint should come before this council. It is not to determine the full merits on whether there should be any sanctions. That lies solely with this council because the city council is the sole judge of the qualifications of its members, and that's provided by city charter. Once the board has determined that the report should go before the council, there is nothing more that needs to be done for the complainant other than to testify before this council at the final hearing. The Board of Ethics is who presents evidence in favor of the report. Counselor Neisert, as the council member accused of committing an ethical violation, is the one who presents evidence in his defense. That is how it is always done in any sort of hearing where you have an accused and a prosecutor. I would analogize this to a criminal proceeding. A victim can report a crime to the police, and a state's attorney can prosecute that crime or decide not to, but the victim doesn't get to prosecute that alongside the state. Now, if the victim has their own individual personalized injury that's unique to them, then sure, there might be civil remedies at stake. But Mr. Cunningham, the complainant in this, has no unique injury to him. By allowing him to be a party in these proceedings, you are effectively allowing Mr. Cunningham to unilaterally represent all citizens of Sioux Falls, because his injury is no different than what would be an injury to any citizen of Sioux Falls based on the alleged misconduct. And therefore, Mr. Cunningham is not a party to these proceedings. The only parties are the Board of Ethics, Counselor Neatsert, and the only judge of any qualifications is this council. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Summers. We'll move in, now we've heard from both those parties, we'll move into general public input on this, so you can please come forward and we'll run the timer on this. So go ahead.
Bruce Danielson. It's been a very interesting little discussion between all the parties. I keep hearing about the drafting of the ordinances, the canons, the process. Has anybody ever thought about going back to the videos that are probably in the archive from when these ordinances were put in place so we could actually see the discussion of how it was drafted? You know, the city council years ago quit taking very good notes because they had all the videos in the warehouse. And I think there's a perfect opportunity to have those videos pulled so we could actually see what was going on back 25 years ago, 20 years ago when all this stuff was being discussed. There's another side of this whole thing is that I keep hearing the words transparent. I happen to know when I look at the finance reports and the other things that have gone on from this previous campaign that Starr and Brecky weren't the only ones that had committed to candidates. There's a serious problem here. If you're going to start pointing accusatory fingers in any direction, you're going to have fingers pointed back at you because each one of you got involved in a nasty campaign to put somebody on the seat for $117,000. These are difficult things. There was a lot of money raised. There's a lot of money at stake in this thing. So if we're going to start talking about conflicts and transparency, better start looking at your own situation because you're just as guilty of it as anybody else. We have a protocol that we're trying to establish here. We have a situation where, as of right now, the public doesn't even know if the attorneys are ready in 2 days to do anything about what's before you. It takes time. It takes subpoenas. If you want to go to court, boy, I bet you this thing will go to court quickly. And then what do you guys be doing? You're going to be looking at what did we do wrong that we couldn't get rid of the last 2 people that we didn't want on this council. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. You know, we have a council member who broke ordinance, canon, and his oath. That's what we're dealing with here. Are these attorneys going to be ready to deal with all of this in 2 days? I don't think so. We have a quibbling argument about whether they got a document on the 11th or the 18th. This body meets as a body officially on the 18th. That's when you got it. You can get all kinds of notes in the background, but you officially got the notice on the 18th, if I understand the calendar right, because you sat in this room and it was put into the record. You can have a lot of notes in the background. There's a lot of leaks in a lot of different issues in this city government, and none of those mean anything. You officially got this information in this room at that certain time, and the calendar starts the day after you got it. You need to pay attention to that. Mr. Torno has made some excellent points in here.
It's been interesting to listen to some of the things that Mr. Summers been saying. Torno's right. If you want to see this government survive, you're going to have to start considering that you are not a general law community, you are a home rule community, and you have to start paying attention to your own rules. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak on this tonight? All right. I don't even know where we're at right now in this. So I think the question is if someone wants to make a motion of whether the client of Mr. Torno can act as basically a prosecutor in this case. Someone would like to make that motion, they can, and we can vote on that.
To examine witnesses.
To examine witnesses on behalf of him. Got it. Does anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion, and I'll make the motion.
Okay. Second. Okay, this motion is second. You want to unpack it?
Here's why. I trump Mr. Torno's experience with this ordinance, and I honestly wish I could remember, because I actually sat on the international board that I chaired the ethics section of the International Municipal Lawyers Group when this model ordinance was passed. And I wish I could say I remember, but I don't. So I'm not going to pretend that I remember, but I do remember some general concepts about this. I know that the reason that it comes to the council and that the ethics board isn't final, they don't have final say over a council member, it was a legal reason. I mean, they have final say over employees and officers, but they don't have final say, over council members, and that's because we have that special status, as it's our election certificates that guide us, and so we had to be judges. And at that time, anyway, when this was passed, that was the way it was done, is to make us, put us in this position to rule over our fellow council members. And I knew also, I remember there being discussions about, that by nature is going to make it political. But good advice is that, put a lot of thought into your procedure, and then regardless of the outcome, people will respect what happens. And, for that reason, I think, I don't see, I can't get past how you have, it says complaint procedure. You have complaint procedure, and you have a complainant, and you're hearing, the purpose of the hearing is to hear this complaint, and I don't see how a complainant, it says the council shall receive evidence. Well, how can they receive evidence? How can they receive evidence without the complainant, having the ability to present evidence? I can't get past that. So, and you guys have been around me long enough to know I try to think past this particular situation in the future. I mean, this is the first time. Hopefully it'll be the last. Hopefully we'll go to get lots of advisory opinions, and I tend to do that. But I think that, to leave the complainant out of the process, there could certainly be situations where there was massive investigation over some issue, and the complainant had a lot of valuable information, and to leave them out of the process just, it doesn't make any sense, and I just don't see how you get back past subsection 6, their right to produce evidence. What is evidence? But it's testimony and documents, and so I made the motion.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that? Councilor Erickson?
Well, I think it's hard we're in this debacle because of intent. We're trying to figure out the intent of what the Board of Ethics was. And so we're in this debacle because of trying to figure out the intent. So we can't assume the intent of what the author wrote on that ordinance. And we're not leaving the complainant out. The complainant will be here. We just passed a subpoena. They're going to be here. You could ask them all the questions that they want. You can ask them whatever you want. So can I. You can ask Counselor Neitzer whatever you want. Hopefully we'll have the due process evidence in there, and that will shed some light to some of the other processes of how they got there, the information that they looked at, but we are not leaving out the complainant. He will be here. We just subpoenaed him. I think that if you look at the language, it doesn't afford for it, and if we're going to follow the letter of the law, we have to follow the letter of the law, and that's what I intend to do, and I do not support that. But I do support asking Mr. Cunningham all the questions, and you're right to ask him any questions he has as well.
Councilor Kiley.
Thank you. I would agree that we're not leaving the complainant out of the process. The complainant had their opportunity when they presented evidence to the Board of Ethics. So their complaint was heard at that time. The idea that the complainant would be able to present evidence again, especially if it should be evidence that was not presented to the Board of Ethics, would be out of order. I mean, because we're cutting the Board of Ethics out of the process entirely if that were to happen. So I would agree with Councilor Erickson and with our attorneys, this board, or this city council's attorney's recommendation in this case.
All right. Thank you, Councilor.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Starr.
I guess that was by attending the Board of Ethics and hearing them rule. I think one of the things, Councilor Kiley, that they recommended to us was that their job is to have a very low burden of what probable cause is. And that we do have the right to take additional testimony, additional things, because their job is just to find probable cause, which is a very low threshold to get it to this point. They had stated that several times. Several of their members had stated that in public, that, again, their role is a low burden to cross. This is a much higher burden that's required to prove guilt in this case. And so it would be in order to take additional evidence. It would be in order to hear from the complainant to do that. To say that we can only act on what the Board of Ethics has brought forward would kind of put us in a place where we wouldn't take additional testimony from witnesses or additional testimony. We have that ability as a board, as the remaining counselors, to look past that and to have a much higher standard to take action.
All right, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kiley?
That would be assuming that the Board of Ethics findings was that we should hold a hearing on the accused. The only place that I found hold a hearing was in number 3 under findings, warrant the council to conduct proceedings to review and clarify policies concerning travel paid for by third parties. But I do agree, the 2 words probable cause is what created conflict for me. Because you might say, well, that means we have to conduct a hearing on the accused. I would counter that it doesn't state that. But who am I to make that decision? Therefore, we find ourselves here this evening.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Starr?
Well, I think the person who determined that was our council, has recommended that to us, with his interpretation of the ordinances saying that. I think that's the reason we're here, because otherwise, if we went by the total intent of what the ethics board was looking at, we'd throw our hands up and say, hey, let's just go home. We're not having a hearing on Thursday, not get to the bottom of what they suggested, that we have probable cause. So I'm following the lead of our council, who's brought us here at this point.
I disagree that it was that simple.
All right, there's a motion and a second on the floor from Councilor Brecky and Starr. Any other discussion on that motion? All right, let's vote on it, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
No.
Starr?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
No.
Jensen? No. Kiley?
No.
All right, that fails 4-2. All right, any other motions we want to entertain on the protocols for the hearing? All right. I'm not seeing any or hearing any. Tom?
Give us 1 second, I'm on a sidebar here. Okay, seeing no other actions on this item, we'll move on to any other new business, council? All right, motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Second.
All right, motion by Jensen, seconded by Erickson to adjourn. All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
All those opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.